Welcome all to OK Let's Talk. I'm your host Rob, and today we are diving into the latest global reports from all around the world, and we aren't just watching the news, we're breaking down the history and the why behind these headlines to give you a deeper educational perspective. With that said, let's get to the analysis. Educational commentary and analysis falls under Fair Use, Section 107. Let's enjoy. Yeah, Taco says a lot, but he never really means it. But we'll see. Because Trump loves war crimes, just like Bibi. Anybody want to guess what's up with Trump today? They called a lid at the White House at like 1 o'clock. It's wonderful rhetoric from a sitting president, isn't it? Nothing like announcing your war crimes beforehand, right? Insane rhetoric from a sitting president of the United States. Declaring a holy war in the Middle East.
Shot down over the southwest of the country on Friday. Now, we're going to be live this hour in Amman, Doha, Beirut, and Tehran. Mohammed Val is in the Iranian capital for us. How is Iran reacting to these fresh threats from Donald Trump?
Should be laughing at them.
That reaction has been ongoing since the beginning of the ultimatum many days ago, actually. And they are saying that they're not concerned about the ultimatum in 48 hours because they have seen it being even executed before that deadline came. So they are talking about the strikes on power plantations, the blackouts that happened during the last few days, and the petrochemical companies that have been hit over the last couple of days, including even today in Mahshahar. For them, this is already the execution of that threat, and they are basically saying that they are ready for it, that Iran has proved that it is capable of defending itself and retaliating in kind. And I have this latest statement by Major General Ali Abdullahi, commander of the Khatam al-Anbiya Central Headquarters, responding to Trump's threat. He said, if the American Zionist enemy carries out any aggression, we will, without limitation, subject all the infrastructure used by the U.S. terrorist army, as well as the infrastructures of the Zionist regime, to continuous and devastating attacks. Also, the spokesman of the Khatam al-Anbiya in another statement said, do not forget that if your aggression expands, the entire region will turn into a hell for you. The mirage of defeating the Islamic Republic of Iran has turned into a swamp in which you are sinking. So basically, that summarizes the attitude here. They are saying that they have what it takes to respond, and if pain is inflicted,
they've been responding. Iran, let's see if they can continue to do so.
On the other side.
Let's talk about this F-15 jet that was shot down over the southwest of Iran on Friday. The search for the missing pilot, missing weapons officer, excuse me.
This poor guy's struggling for his life, and Trump's posting nonsense about holy wars.
It's an interesting situation of ambiguity. There is search. The area has been sealed, according to the authorities here, sealed off. And the search is going on. They asked civilians across that area to help with the search for that pilot. And in some reports, not really official, talking about how this pilot might finally, if he's alive, resort to trying to get in touch with someone so that he can get food and water and so on, because after so many days, probably if there is any ration, if he had any ration on him, he might have run out of it. And that's one of the, that's a hope, that probably he will, if he's alive, he will show up somewhere. But it is going on. This search is going on by both sides.
If the Iranians find him and capture him, they can use him as a bargaining chip.
Details about how the Americans
They're not going to kill him.
About the search in an area that is full of,
I don't think so, anyway.
Probably armed forces units and people who are ready to shoot at them. At the beginning of the search, there were images of helicopters in the area, and also shooting at those helicopters. Today, there is none of that being reported.
A bunch of Americans got wounded in this rescue attempt.
Ambiguous situation, no details, but it is still going on as we speak.
Mohammed, thank you very much. Mohammed Val there in Tehran. Well, meanwhile, in the US, there's been little official reaction to the search for the missing airman. Al Jazeera's Mike Hanna reports from Washington, D.C.
Neither the White House nor the Pentagon have commented on these ongoing search operations for the crewman who was brought down by Iranian air defenses. And there's also been no explanation from the Pentagon or indeed the White House as to why, just days after they claimed that Iranian air defenses had been obliterated, you have U.S. aircraft being shot down by the self-same...
Because Trump doesn't have any idea what the word obliterated means, or decimated, or anything else.
There's going to be a public reaction as the saga continues. While the search continues for the missing crew member, the fact that U.S. aircraft were shot down in skies that the U.S. insisted it had complete control over is something deeply concerning to many Americans and probably to the White House as well.
Yeah. All of a sudden, Trump is silent today, other than his insane Truth Social post this morning. They called a lid at like, what, 1, 2 o'clock this afternoon? That's not good. He's not golfing this weekend? That's not good.
Assessments show no sign of damage to the plant's main units, but Iran's Atomic Energy Agency is warning of a potential nuclear accident. And Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi is warning on Saturday that radioactive fallout from an accident would, in his words, end life in Gulf capital cities. U.S. and Israeli forces have launched
Trump is so stupid. Hexit is so stupid.
Iran's science ministers told Al Jazeera more than 30 universities have been targeted across the country since the conflict began 5 weeks ago. Tehran has threatened to retaliate with attacks on U.S.-affiliated schools in the region. Tawhid Asadi went to the scene of the latest strikes, and he's got this report.
And here we are in the
What's up, Big Rhythm?
of the
Welcome to
Iranian
the chat,
capital,
man. Welcome to the stream.
PhD University, where this laser and plasma research institute was targeted. On Friday, a U.S.-Israeli strike hit the university in Tehran, badly damaging those facilities. It's not the first to be targeted. Earlier this week, attacks struck the Iran University of Science and Technology. Last month, one of his faculty members was killed at home, along with
because all of this was his idea. That's why Hexit is stupid.
Research and Technology told
At least that's the word on the street.
More than 30 universities have been targeted so far.
This is Hexit's war.
More than 60
the drunk.
university students have been martyred to date.
The guy
along
who
with
fired
several
12
professors.
generals.
This not only brings international responsibility, but will also forever tarnish humanity's memory of the aggressors. Humanity will never forget.
Thanks, Jefferson.
that
You're
US,
so
with
kind.
all its claims
Don't forget
for
to like and
upholding human
subscribe.
rights, has now targeted knowledge and scholars.
The Red Crescent says more than 760 schools have been hit. Over the past weeks, the scope of those strikes has expanded as the U.S. and Israel increasingly attack civilian
Schools.
infrastructure.
We're attacking schools.
We are in southern areas
This
of
is the type of
Iranian
war
capital,
crime bullshit
Tehran,
that we
where
expect from
residential and
people like
commercial
Iran
area was
and from
targeted,
Russia.
and this building,
Not from
the
us.
hospital, was severely
We're supposed to be
impacted.
above that.
A US-Israeli attack
We're supposed to be
hit
the
this
beacon
area
on the
last
hill, the
week.
shining light.
It destroyed the market that was here.
We're not supposed to get down into the mud and the
force
muck.
of explosion also caused extensive damage to Delaram Sina Hospital. Hospital management says it has been impossible for them to continue caring for patients.
The blast from the airstrike on the street outside caused serious damage to the hospital. Most of our patients have mental health conditions, and a calm environment is essential for their care.
Inside the hospital, the extent of the destruction is even more apparent. This is shrapnel inside one of the rooms of the ground floor of this hospital, and the damage obviously extends to other parts like this one. According to Iran's Ministry of Health, more than 350 health centers have been damaged since the start of the war. And the Red Crescent says at least 18 of its facilities have been damaged, as well as dozens of pharmaceutical sites. That includes Pasteur Institute of Iran, a century-old vaccine production hub. And as the U.S. threatens to target
Well,
more
MAGA doesn't
civilian
believe in vaccines,
facilities such
so
as
what does
power
Trump care,
plants and bridges,
right?
people in Iran are being left to cope with the consequences. Al Jazeera, Tehran.
Yemen's Houthi group has announced it carried out a joint long-range attack on Israel alongside Iranian and Hezbollah forces. It said it fired a ballistic missile targeting Lod Airport in the Jaffa area and key military targets.
The Yemeni armed forces, with God's help, carried out their fifth military operation, using a fissile ballistic missile and several drones targeting Lod Airport in the Jaffa area and vital military targets belonging to the Israeli enemy in southern occupied Palestine. This operation was conducted jointly with the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the Iranian Army, and Hezbollah in Lebanon, and it successfully achieved its objectives.
Earlier, a wave of Iranian cluster missiles hit at least 10 locations in central Israel. Israel says one attack in Ramat Gan caused a building to partially collapse. An electricity line was also damaged, causing a power outage in several parts of the city. A major fire was also reported at a military-linked facility in Beersheba. At least 4 people have been injured. And in northern Israel, missiles targeted the city of Kiryat Shmona. Hezbollah claimed responsibility, saying it launched a barrage in the early hours of Saturday morning. And separately, hundreds of people have taken to the streets in Israel to demand an end to the war in Iran. Protesters have gathered in Tel Aviv's main square, as well as in several major cities, including Jerusalem and Haifa. Demonstrations are held every Saturday against the Netanyahu government. Rob McBride's joining us now from the Jordanian capital, Amman. Rob, let's talk about the story we were mentioning.
If you're interested in state television, Paul, you can check out Newsmax, Fox, CBS.
Facilities. They're just waiting for the green light from the U.S.
Yeah, that's right. Senior defense officials in Israel do appear to have been briefing quite broadly Israeli media outlets that are all now reporting about a possible inclusion in this airstrikes against critical civilian infrastructure when it comes to power supply inside Iran. It says that the Israeli Air Force is preparing a list of targets that include energy generation and distribution. And
well, of course, baby is, because he's a war criminal too.
Week, which fits almost exactly with this 48-hour countdown given by U.S. President Donald Trump that Israeli fighters and warplanes will be.
Well, there's no proof that Iran was close to a nuke. You'd have to believe Trump on that. No one believes Trump. And all of a sudden, Trump stopped talking about getting their nukes, getting the uranium and stopping their nuclear capabilities, or freeing the Iranian people. Last couple of days, it's all been about oil. Go figure. All Trump cares about is oil in a grift.
Of Iran, especially industries that have a dual civilian and potential military application, such as, for example, the steel industry that Israeli fighters have been hitting very hard in recent days because the steel from those works can be used to make armaments. And according to Netanyahu, about 70% of Iran's steel-making capacity has now been destroyed, and now they're concentrating on petrochemicals because he says the materials from there can also be used in the ballistic missile program. And both industries,
I could use a milk carton in a ballistic missile program. You're going to bomb cardboard factories too?
And the rest of the world.
And Rob, Israel apparently
Israel are war
the
criminals.
south of Lebanon at the same time.
Maybe he needs to be strung up.
To attack again Iran. The
Hello,
goal
all.
in southern Lebanon appears to be occupation.
Thank you, Paul. I misunderstood your comment then.
it does look increasingly like that. And there does seem to be a campaign underway at the moment by authorities.
Yeah, everybody
in
that's
Israel,
made money on it is named
to
Trump,
prepare the
or they're
public
Trump
for
adjacent.
tougher fighting to come, and also to give justification for this increasingly massive military commitment that it's undertaking in southern Israel, with in southern Lebanon, with military officials stressing just how much of a threat Hezbollah still poses, saying that it has the rockets to potentially fire 200 of them per day for a 5-month period. Now, this is an organization which, after another conflict at the end of 2024, some of the government, including Netanyahu, had said it had been weakened for decades. One minister saying it had been defeated. So while there's still a vast majority of people in Israel who support this conflict, says it has to be waged there, the minority who are against the war or against the way it's being handled is becoming increasingly vociferous. And we have seen these protests taking place in Tel Aviv, Haifa, other cities.
Back to the Stone Age, huh, Don? That's one thing for an NPC on a live stream chat to say. It's not something a sitting president of the United States should say, though. You know, don't admit to your war crimes beforehand.
Rob McBride there talking to
We
us
used to expect
from
more
Jordan's
from our
capital.
leaders, but
Thank you.
I guess those days are over.
Israeli forces have pounded the southern suburbs of Lebanon's capital.
Hello, Joseph.
This is the aftermath from drone attacks that injured at least 11 people. The army says it was targeting Hezbollah infrastructure. Dozens of homes have been hit in the strikes. Hadi Pet is live for us in Beirut.
I wouldn't doubt if he wants to nuke them.
With Rob, Israel's invaded the south. It's been striking Beirut and the city of Tyre. I understand that now Israeli forces
Utah, my condolences, man.
border crossing with Syria.
You guys do all mail-in voting, right? And you're a Republican state, a red state? Is that correct? You do all mail-in voting?
That the border crossing should be evacuated. There was an imminent threat that the Israeli military was going to target it. Now, this is the main border crossing between Lebanon and Syria. It's called Masna. Thousands of people use it every day.
I don't know, Tom.
In fact, more than 200,000 people have used it to evacuate
the Epstein
out of
War.
Lebanon in the last month since the war started. Most of those were Syrians who are going home, but about 30,000 Lebanese as well, according to the UNHCR. Now, this crossing, it's a very busy crossing,
well,
and additionally, the area that the Israeli
I'd rather see him try to
military
nuke a
said that it's
hurricane.
going to target with airstrikes is about the 3.5-kilometer stretch of road from where the Lebanese border post is, and then
Nuke a
about
hurricane
3.5
or
kilometers
bomb more
into
schools.
no-man's land.
What do you think?
That area
What should Trump
at the
do?
moment is home to hundreds of trucks because there's been a massive backup there in the last couple of months due to a new Syrian import policy requiring Syrian trucks to transport goods inside the country. And so the drivers get stuck there for up to a week, sleeping in their cabs. So it's not just the people passing back and forth. The evacuation of that border crossing is also hundreds of trucks.
Yeah, right.
And the video coming out of there has been a lot of panic. People running, evacuating in their cars. I spoke to a member of the customs agency here in Lebanon who confirmed that it has indeed been closed and fully evacuated. But this represents a significant expansion in Israel's targeting of civilian infrastructure here in Lebanon. They've been systematically blowing up bridges connecting South Lebanon to the rest of the country over the Litani River, 9 so far, but this is a significant
They're just
escalation
marching into
targeting
another
this
country
main
and taking
border
land
crossing
and kicking
between
people out of
Syria
their
and
homes
Lebanon.
and blowing
not
them
just
up.
cutting off
Like,
South
get out.
Lebanon from the rest
We're taking
of
this
Lebanon,
land
but
now.
now indeed isolating Lebanon
What year are
from
we
its
living in?
neighbors.
Heidi, let's go back to southern Lebanon for a bit and the UN's role in that. Now, their operation there is called UNIFIL, and it's usually made up of.
I hope they
UN
disconnected his
peacekeepers who
button.
Control the Lebanese side of the
He's already
border
got a couple of
with,
screws loose, so.
Israel. But 3 peacekeepers have died just recently. They've been coming under fire several times.
Yeah, the UN peacekeepers who've been stationed down in that border area
Help
for
from who,
decades
Tom?
now have experienced a number of deaths and injuries since
Yep,
this war
China's definitely
escalated
stronger
again about
now.
a month ago.
They're still getting their
In
oil.
that incident where 3 Indonesian peacekeepers
And they didn't
died
just
in
blow
2
through
separate
all of their
explosions a couple of
armaments
days ago. UNIFIL says that it
on
is still
a useless
investigating
war.
the circumstances of those explosions. The Israeli military has pinned the blame on Hezbollah. But what has happened in the last 24 hours is that the Israeli troops that have been operating in and around the town of Naura, which is where UNIFIL has its headquarters, it's a coastal town right down by the Israeli border, and the Israelis have destroyed every single CCTV
Who's 300 miles
camera
away from
around the
danger?
UNIFIL headquarters. Now, UNIFIL says that those cameras, they're purely pointed at the perimeter. They're there for the safety and security of the military and civilian peacekeepers that are stationed down there. They have reminded the Israelis of their responsibility to ensure the safety of their peacekeepers and said that they're launching a formal complaint. But that base has come under fire a number of times already. A projectile landed there in the last week. Now, UNIFIL said that that one came from a non-state actor, and their investigations into a number of other incidents where their troops have been targeted are ongoing. They concluded, in fact, that the Israelis were responsible for one attack about 3 weeks ago that injured 3 Ghanaian peacekeepers when an Israeli tank fired 3 shells into their base. But this destruction of the CCTV cameras means that it is much more difficult for them to investigate, to prove, to issue any kind of concrete findings as fighting escalates in that town, if indeed that base is targeted again, or in fact, again, if there is Israeli fire in the direction of...
Right, you got that right, NPC. Nobody's coming to help us.
Beirut, this Heidi Ped. Heidi, thank you.
Nobody's going to help Trump. Why would they help Trump? He created this mess. Let him fix it. Or just pack up your toys and leave. That'll fix it. Just pack up and go. Declare victory of some sort and just go away.
Donald Trump does carry out this threat and then Iran responds. Do we have an
It's the easiest
idea what
way
that
out.
would mean for the Gulf region, Victoria?
Well, this is
Say
the
you've
nightmare
degraded
scenario,
everything,
really. GCC
and they're not a threat
countries have
anymore.
said no
The
good
rubes will
come
believe it.
from this
Pack up
conflict
all your toys and your
escalating
troops.
any further.
Ship
I
out.
mean, they have said that, you know, Gulf countries have really been attacked by Iran. That's been part of its strategy from the very beginning. It says it's only attacking really
Welcome
US
to
military
Spain.
assets and other US assets in this region. But we have seen over the past 5 weeks that civilian infrastructure and critical energy infrastructure.
The green lamp, it's just a desk lamp, man.
Missiles and drones. We've
Gonna be really
attacks
bright,
in the last few
but-
days on desalination plants in Kuwait.
Yeah,
on
it's
gas
just a
facilities,
regular
on
desk
oil
lamp.
refineries,
Ain't
on
none do it.
airports, on IT facilities. The list goes on and on.
Fucking
And
thing's
GCC
100 years old.
countries have said that they have been very restrained in the face of these attacks. That's not because they don't have the ability to
Trump is a
respond.
piece
They
of shit,
spend
Michael.
about $115 billion annually on defense.
Uh-oh.
$billion annually on defense. Some countries
If we're considered the Nazis, probably, at this point.
have started to talk about the fact that their patience is not unlimited. Saudi
Wilson.
Arabia in particular has talked in recent weeks about its right
You
to
like the lamp?
self-defense
I'll sell it to you.
under Article 51
$5,000.
of the
Free
UN
shipping.
Charter. Now, the position of the GCC at the moment remains that they're calling for de-escalation and dialogue. They say that is the only way that this conflict will be resolved. But if there is further escalation and more attacks on this region, then some GCC countries have started to say that that stance may change.
Victoria, stay with me for a second because I want to talk to you about the fact that Italy's Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni has been wrapping up a tour to 3 Gulf countries. She was in Doha earlier on Saturday, and here's what she had to say about the visit.
The Israelis will give you a better deal. All right, man. Well, deal with them, man. They'll probably just bomb your house and just take what you have. Take your
A
land.
message of solidarity towards nations that are partners, that are friends,
Escalation.
and that continue to suffer unjustified attacks from Iran. But our goal was
No,
not
you're
simply
right,
to be a
Arian.
witness. It was and it is to lend
won't
a
help the
hand
country.
to address the problems. And
He's helping
thus be
destroy
able
the
to better
economy
defend Italian
and
national
destroy our
interests.
pocketbooks and our bank accounts.
The Gulf is a fundamental actor in the global energy market and more. If production or transit here contracts or even stops, the price increases for everyone. And if it worsens, we can reach the
Welcome,
point
Steve.
of not
Like and
having all the
subscribe,
energy
buddy.
that is necessary, even in Italy.
So, Victoria, Giorgia Meloni there, she's saying that Italian national interests are paramount in this visit. And, of course, amongst those national interests is the supply
Thanks, Dave. Don't
of
forget to like
energy
and
that it
subscribe.
desperately needs. Do we know what was
Lots of good stuff on the channel you're sure to hate.
Well, Giorgia Meloni was the first leader from a European country. and
Cuba's
NATO
next, man.
country to visit this
That'd be an
region
easier win. They
since
should have
this
went there
conflict
instead of here.
began. She was here primarily.
Should have
to
stayed in the
secure
hemisphere.
Italy's energy security. Italy,
Could have
she
rolled right
said,
over
relies
Cuba.
very heavily on this region for its oil and gas. She made the point in her statement after she had met
Hola.
the Emir of Qatar that 10% of Italy's total gas supplies come from Qatar, and 15% of its total oil supplies come from
it's in the thousands, Paul. I'm not sure. I don't have the latest data, but like last week they were claiming like 1,800 dead civilians, including like, of course, lots of kids. So it's got to be 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, maybe more.
Stand with these Gulf countries in this time of crisis, and also to make the point that the critical enery supplies.
What's Maloney doing? I don't know what she's doing there, man. Just making a deal to get some oil cheap. I don't know. But
at some point, if this doesn't get resolved, Italy
she's hot, so good enough for me.
So I think that was also what she was trying to achieve, to highlight how critical this issue has become.
As Victoria Gatenby talking to us there from Doha. Thank you, Victoria. Going to take a look at some of the day's other news now.
You're knocking it out of the park, Arian.
At least one Palestinian in Gaza. The attack hit a civilian vehicle near the Al-Maghazi refugee.
We're not leaving NATO, man.
Several others were injured. Israel has attacked
Trump
Gaza
can't pull us out of NATO with an executive order.
That was agreed last
Yeah, I don't like Maloney politically. I know she's like far right, but she's a hottie. I don't know, something about her makes my dick move a little. But yeah, we're definitely not leaving. I think Biden put a law in place or something in place before he left that you need an active Congress. Now, Republicans control Congress until January, so we'll see, but he can't just do it on his own. Trump's going to need Congress.
Many families don't have shelter or safety. They're surrounded by sewage, water, rubbish, and debris, and that's putting children at risk of disease.
And of course, we're out of the dealing.
By rodents. Reports
as we should be.
In Gaza, tents are a thin divider between.
I agree. She is fascist.
The dangers outside, but in these displacement camps, even that protection's collapsing. Between debris and streams of sewage water, families are now fronting another threat.
Yeah.
Yasmin Rehan is
He's not going to get birthright citizenship either. Supreme Court did not seem very impressed the other day.
It does not offer much protection, and that a young daughter.
Thanks, Ralphie. Like and subscribe, buddy.
Now the child's skin shows the signs of that.
She's not? Okay. Good. All the better for me.
As her mother tries to soothe her wounds. She says they are not from a single night, but from the conditions they live in every day.
Rodents and rats live among the sewage surrounding us. We recently received a
Thanks for stopping by, Kavoosh.
Every day I discover new holes in its fabric caused by rats. We find rat droppings in our food, in our flour, and even in our children's clothes.
That's disgusting.
These camps have become fertile grounds for disease.
Look at this. Can you imagine having to live like this? Trump did kill the Republican Party, man. Took longer than people thought, but I think the GOP is going to get absolutely wiped out and hammered in November. Hammered. I mean, his approval rating is 33, 34%. The war is very unpopular. The economy is shit. Even if he packs up and leaves today, the economy isn't going to get better for like at least a year.
Suddenly cried out loudly. I woke up to see what had happened, but the tent was completely dark. I used the light on my phone to check.
I don't know, Paul. I was busy talking. I didn't see what city this was.
My husband then found the rat right next to him.
Doctors warn conditions in Gaza's tent camps are
Detroit.
A wider public health crisis, especially among children whose immune systems are already weakened by malnutrition and poor conditions.
During just the last week, we record about 3 cases in this hospital for children. One of them neonate, where a big mouse ate part of his face. And after that, we have 2 cases attacked also by.
Wait till you see what happens to gas prices if Trump puts boots on the ground.
Of the war.
Months after being
where they try to take that island or blow it up, hit it.
Even after a ceasefire took effect in October.
The loss of home was only the beginning, but for many families in Gaza, even shelter has become another source of fear, especially for children sleeping inside.
I know the World Cup's happening, man. I can't afford to go there to any of the matches, but I'm a fan. Philadelphia Union.
Now, under pressure from Donald Trump, Mexico and the United States have updated an
Liverpool.
80-year-old water
You never
treaty.
walk alone.
It now guarantees water supplies from Mexico to the southern U.S. And the U.S. government says it's going to help American farmers, but
Really?
Mexican farmers
No
say they've been
publicity for
left
the World
behind.
Cup, huh?
John Holman
That
has
sucks.
more on the story from northern Mexico.
Water, the great shared commodity along the Mexico-US border.
MAGA doesn't even care about Epstein anymore, Terry.
Wrangling over rivers that start in
They
one
don't care.
nation and end in another. But
Bondi
now,
got
after
fired
threats of tariffs from Donald
because
Trump,
of her handling of the files. And now Blanche, who took over, is like, we're all done releasing the files. Everything's been released. And they're just washing their hands of it and walking away.
Mexico with water from the Colorado River in the west.
It's all
and in
bullshit.
Return, Mexico supplies the US with about a third of that amount from its rivers in the east. But over
MAGA
a
still
5-year
supports them
period,
because
rather
their
than
ego, they just can't
annual amounts.
allow themselves to
Now
admit that they were wrong.
change. Instead of the 5-year
Fuck 'em.
quota, Mexico will
Then go
send
down
the
with the ship.
same amount to the United States, but in fixed annual deliveries, more than 400 million cubic meters of water every year.
Yeah.
Farmers on both sides of the border say that tweak makes a huge difference. In drought-ridden Chihuahua, North
Well,
Mexico,
France has got to do what they got to do, right? If they have to pay a
there's
toll,
already not enough water to
even though
go
it's a
around.
violation of international law, what are you going to do? You're going to just run out of gas, run out of oil? You can't let that happen. Your entire country will shut down. So you got to pay a little extra. You pay a little extra. You got to keep things moving at least.
He's talking about radical action if Mexico opens its dams to give to the US.
We can get up to 75% of our crop average back.
But downriver in Texas, farmers are struggling.
Trump doesn't
hard
like the
to-
Constitution.
Sitting under 50% of
He likes to
our
wipe his
farm area
ass
to
with
be
it.
able to even farm. We have to rely right now on rainfall moisture to be able to plant and get our crops up and growing.
Especially because Mexico's already defaulted on its water payment multiple times. Brian Jones is skeptical, whatever the agreement, that they'll provide this time. But a more consistent supply could keep him in business.
If we can get that water behind the dams and those international reservoirs, hopefully we can get up to 75-80% of our crop acreage back planted and growing.
The big picture, water experts tell us, is that with a long-term trend of more droughts, eventually there could be not enough for either side.
Wipe my ass.
John Holman, Al Jazeera, Chihuahua, Mexico.
NASA has released the first images taken by astronauts on board the Orion capsule as it heads towards the moon. The 4 crew members have now passed the halfway point between Earth and the moon. They're going to fly between 6,500 and 10,000 kilometers above the lunar surface.
FIFA is definitely
orbiting around
corrupt.
the dark side of the moon before returning to Earth. It's the first time in more than 50 years that humans have left the Earth's orbit. The Artemis program aims to land astronauts on the moon by 2028.
Yesterday, we were looking out the docking hatch, which is off the camera to the top side, and we were just starting to see the moon, and it just looked different. And we were catching glimpses of the far side,
Going to the
side that
moon
you can never see from Earth.
for
of
whatever
Grimaldi,
reason.
Of Oriental, we were just starting to see around Grimaldi into that far. And as for humans,
Yes,
who
we
have looked
do.
at the
We
moon
reap
our
what we
entire
sow.
lives,
Have
it
the day you
just
voted
looks
for, Rubes.
different out the window, and that is wild. It just really put our place in the universe in perspective.
The bottom line is
Really?
Mohammed's going to be
Trump has
here
done more for America than any other president?
coverage of
List the
war between
accomplishments.
US, Israel, and Iran.
I'll wait.
Hearing the facts.
A busy day for Iran today could mean when Iran
I mean, come on.
will be a busy day for cities in the Gulf.
Asking questions.
How much does what cost? Going to the moon?
And this conflict really inflict on the global economy.
Tens of billions of dollars? I don't know. Hey, we just print it and rape the little guy to pay for it all. It's no big deal.
Al Jazeera's teams across the world.
Remember, Trump's tax cuts for the low-income and middle-class people, they expire in a couple of years. But his tax cuts for rich people, they're permanent. That should tell you everything you need to know about the man. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Steve Clemens, and I
Yeah.
have a couple of questions.
Might as well make Bibi the
Trump
president.
keeps saying he wants more time, maybe just 2 or 3 more weeks to finish the job in Iran.
Yeah, every
is the
couple of
job?
weeks. It's a couple more
finishing
weeks.
it
Couple
look
more
like?
weeks.
Let's
That's
get to
right.
the
What does it
bottom
look
line.
like? What are the objectives? Because now all he talks about is getting the oil.
U.S. President Donald Trump is threatening to bomb Iran back to the Stone Ages if it doesn't make a deal in the
War
next
crimes.
few weeks. Despite seeing many of its key political, theological, and national security leaders killed, Iran has been able to absorb wave after wave of Israeli and U.S. bombings, which are
Yep,
also killing
you got that
civilians,
right.
as in the case of 168 schoolgirls killed on the very first
Billionaires
day of
love 'em.
conflict,
Corporations
and
love 'em.
destroying
Of
the
course.
country's industrial and energy infrastructure. Iran has hit back at Israel and U.S. military bases across the Arab world and shaken the global economy by blocking access to the Strait of Hormuz.
Right.
So are we heading to a quick resolution, or are we heading to a long war of attrition? And is the war on Iran triggering
Trump
something
wants
much
another
bigger,
$500
a
billion
very new and different
for
global
the
world
defense budget
order?
next year.
Today we're talking
From
with
$1
U.S.
trillion to
political
$1.5
scientist
trillion.
John Mearsheimer,
And he wants to
professor
cut
of
social
international
programs
relations at the
and
University
domestic
of Chicago,
programs to help
and
pay
he's
for it.
author of How States Think, the
Like, come
Rationality
on.
of Foreign Policy. John, it's great to be with you again. This is one of those moments again where the world is watching the tit for
Who's
tat
stalling?
between
Trump stalling?
the United States and Israel on one side,
Okay.
Iran on the other. That's one way to cover it. Another way to cover it is ask what this moment means to the global order, to American power, to the
A lot of people
superstates
aren't
of the
getting oil,
world.
man,
I'd
I
love to
know.
get your take on the temperature of the global order as
the
you see it and what
one man
Iran
caused all this. One guy.
Well, I think a lot of
One
people
orange
talk
lunatic
about
in the
how
United
this is
States
going
did all
to
this
affect
to the entire
global
world.
balance of power or the distribution among the most powerful states on the planet, and that would include
Maybe when
of course,
Democrats get control of
China,
Congress, they'll
Russia, and the
impeach him. I
United
don't know.
States. And I don't think that this war is going to have any effect on the distribution of power in the international system. Where this war really matters is in terms of how the United States uses the
Brought in
power
trillions
that
for
it
jobs.
has.
You're going to have to show your
And
sources,
I
man.
think that under the
Showed the
Trump
fraud in government.
administration, what
Trump
we
is the
have
fraud in
seen
government. What are you
is that
talking
the
about?
United States
Cleaned up
has
voter
pursued
rolls?
a set of
That's up to
policies
states,
that
not the federal
our
government.
ability to project all
Come back when you
that
learn
power
something.
that we have around the globe. Now, what exactly am I saying here? I think if you're a great power
Jeffrey
like
Sachs,
the
yep.
United States and you're interested in using all that power you have, it's very important that you pay attention to international institutions, which you, by the way, have created. You pay attention to international law, which you, by the way, have largely written. And you also go to great lengths to foster good relations with your allies, because institutions, international law, and allies are important for projecting power. And what the Trump administration has done, and it is doing very clearly in the case of the Iran war, is that it's undermining international law. It's undermining
I can't even imagine paying $11 a gallon.
institutions, both of which it needs, and it's
I
doing
mean,
great damage to its relations.
if we
with
got anywhere
allies
near
in
$11,
Europe,
there would
in
be
Asia,
riots in the
and
streets.
certainly
And I mean
Persian
riots
Gulf.
from guys that look
So
like me.
this
Old
war
whites
in
would be
Iran is
burning neighborhoods to
disastrous
the
for the
ground.
United States. It's not going to undermine
It'd be
our
insane.
basic power structure. We have lots of power, but what it's going to undermine, and of course this is consistent with what President Trump has been doing since he first returned to the White House in January 2025, is undermine our ability to project.
Welcome back, Eric.
I think you framed
Have you
it
subscribed
really
yet? Did I
in
ask you
such
last
a
night?
fascinating way that when I think about it, listening to you, I think about UN rapporteurs, I think of prosecutors of the International Criminal Court. They're the ones being punished in this moment. They're the ones that are being sanctioned and pushed, and it kind of raises this kind of question about
Thank
the
you, Eric.
solvency of institutions, the solvency of international law. But I'm interested in the
Dude,
equation.
you
that
can't hurt
said
my
after
feelings.
this is
I'm an
over, the
old man.
distribution
I've
of
been around a
power
long
remains the
time.
same. But
It's going to take a lot more than a
America
comment from an NPC on
suffer at all
YouTube.
in a world where it has tossed out its own systems?
Well, the point here that you want to keep in mind, Steve, is that the power that any country has is largely dependent on the material capabilities it has. The two building blocks of power are wealth and population size. And you use that wealth and you use that population size to build powerful military forces. And the fact is that the United States is able to behave in a rather cavalier and one could argue reckless way. And that will
One
not
could argue
have
reckless,
any
yeah.
effect on those material factors. To give you a good example, the United States lost the Vietnam War. Between 1965 and 1975, we engaged in this war in Vietnam and suffered a devastating defeat. But it had no effect on the balance of power. The United States was not less powerful. We didn't have less people, less wealth, and a weaker military as a result of the war. And that's the same basic argument that I'm making here. This foolish foreign policy that President Trump is pursuing, as evidenced by what's going on in Iran, is not weakening American power. What it's weakening is our ability to project power because it's undermining institutions. Just think about NATO. NATO is an international institution. The United States has depended heavily on NATO for many, many years, since 1949, to be specific.
Not according to Trump.
Is it in our interest to undermine NATO? Is it in our interest to undermine
Yes, it has, Eric.
international law? Is it in our interest to undermine the International Court of Justice? I think the answer is no. We need these institutions. We need allies. But President Trump, who is a unilateralist at heart, doesn't think that you need multilateral institutions. He doesn't.
You got that
think
right,
you
War
need
is Peace.
international law,
Yep.
And he's contemptuous of our allies. And in
Money
many
for
ways, he
everybody
treats
except our own
allies
citizens.
worse than he treats our adversaries.
Well, let's listen to President Trump, who has something to say about exactly this. Let's listen.
We're now
Oh, God.
totally independent of the Middle East, and yet we are there to help. We don't have to be there.
He
We
looks
don't
great,
need their
doesn't he?
oil. We don't need anything they have, but we're there to help our allies.
What a vibrant, young,
Basically saying,
energetic
I agree
man.
with John Mearsheimer in that. We don't need our allies. We don't need this. We can walk through the world as a single actor and be arbitrary one way or the other. But your thoughts, John?
Well, I mean, to argue that we're totally independent of the Middle East is ridiculous. The fact is, there are three areas of the world that the United States cares greatly about. This is where our vital strategic interests are engaged. One is obviously Europe. The other is East Asia. And then the final one is the Persian Gulf because of the oil. It is a vital strategic area of the world for the United States. And to argue that we're independent of it, it doesn't matter to us, is a foolish argument to make. You know, President Trump often talks about leaving the war. What is he saying here? That we're going to leave the Middle East? We're just going to forget the Persian Gulf? We're going to forget that oil? Of course we're not going to do that. We're going to remain there because it is a vital strategic area of interest to us. So I don't know what he's talking about. And with regard to allies,
He doesn't know what
as
he's
I said,
talking about.
We need
So,
allies. We need allies in the Gulf.
well, not according to Trump. We don't need
We
allies.
need allies in Europe. The idea that we are an independent actor that
Thank you,
doesn't
Matthew.
depend
Not a
on
Democrat, but like and
allies is
subscribe.
a foolish argument to make. The United States is a great power that tries to project power all across the globe. How do you project power all across the globe without allies? And the answer is you don't. And when you start slapping them around the way he does, you're going to find yourself in a whale of a lot of trouble. And as is clear, we are in a whale of a lot of trouble in Iran.
So my question is, if you saw Iran as a nefarious actor in the world, why not take this kind of action now and use this at a moment to reorder those relations? So pick that apart.
First of all, this argument that Iran is a great threat to stability in the Middle East and a serious threat to the United States is nonsense. The greatest threat to stability in the Middle East is the United States working closely together with Israel.
There you go.
Iran has not started
I like this
a
guy.
war in centuries, as best I can tell. It's not a highly aggressive country. The country in the Middle East that is
What?
highly aggressive is Israel. The country that has committed genocide in Gaza is not Iran. It's Israel. And we were complicit. We, meaning the United States, were complicit in that genocide. Twice, once last year in June of 2025, and again on February 28th of this year, the United States and Israel launched unprovoked attacks against Iran. So the idea that Iran is this great destabilizer in the Middle East is a myth that the United States and Israel purvey. This is not to say that that Iran doesn't present some problems in the Middle East that the United States has to be concerned about. But the idea that this is a
That's okay,
serious
Matthew.
threat,
You don't
much
have to
less an
subscribe, buddy. Just hang out for a while, man.
is not a serious
You're helping my
argument.
algorithm
That's
just by
point
showing
number
up.
one. Point number two is if you look at what
Hang out a
the
while.
Israelis and
Keep
the
chatting.
Americans are now doing to deal with this purported Iranian threat, what you see
All
is
interaction
we've
is good here, man.
taken measures that have made the situation much worse. In fact, one could argue that we are going to crash the international economy as a result of this war that
Yeah, it's already
Israel
happening.
and the United States started. I would make the argument that we are on the edge of the precipice in terms of the state of the world economy because of this war. This war shows no signs of ending anytime soon, and already great damage has been done to the international economy, and more damage will be done the longer the war goes on. So this idea that number one, Iran is a great threat to the United States is
What's up, Jay?
bogus. And number two, the idea that President Trump and his friends in Israel are making a safer and more stable Middle East is a ludicrous argument. In fact, what they're doing is they're putting
It's
the
under
entire
50% of the American people
on the precipice
in recent
of
polling,
a disaster.
like 40-some%,
One of the
agree with Trump
things that I find
that we should be at war.
is when you kind of talk to
But
war
when you
planners,
ask them, should we put
strategists
boots on the
across
ground,
Republican and Democratic circles,
the numbers
it's
absolutely
hard to
crater.
find
So like
anyone, that
over
wouldn't have
50%,
expected that
60%
Iran,
don't want us at
would
war.
shut down
And
and
then
use this
when you
little
ask,
form of
well, we're at
resistance
war,
choke
what
point.
about boots
And
on
in
the ground?
fact,
It's like
the Strait of
70%
Hormuz
of
was
Americans
really
don't want boots on the
Iran's
ground.
nuclear bomb. That if you wanted to create something that
It's
they thought was
just a
different, I'm
minority of
interested in
Americans that
why
they
you
want this
think
war
this White House
and are okay with American kids
had
getting
none of
killed
that input or
for more
just
billionaire
disregarded
grift
that
because
element.
they're stupid.
I actually think it's quite clear. President Trump has said that he was forewarned that the Iranians were likely to shut down the strait. But he said that it didn't matter. And the reason that it didn't matter is that the administration thought that they could win a quick and decisive victory. They thought that they could.
Putin thought he'd win a
when
quick
I
and
say
decisive
they, we're
victory
talking
too.
about the United States
So did
and
Hitler.
Israel, which I
Things
like
didn't
to
work out
refer
for
to
either
as
one of
the
them.
tag team. The tag team thought that they could launch a shock and awe strategy against Iran, which would involve decapitating the regime. And because that regime had so little support in the general population in Iran, the decapitation or the shock and awe strategy would lead to a revolution. The regime would be overthrown, and the new regime would either submit to our demands, or the old regime would remain in place and just surrender. Those were the two things that they thought might happen. But the point is that this shock and awe strategy would produce a quick and decisive victory. And therefore, you wouldn't have to worry about the Iranians closing the straits. But what happened here, obviously, is that the shock and awe strategy failed, and we're now in a war of attrition. And in this war of attrition that we now find ourselves in, the Iranians hold almost all the
Morons are
cards,
governing
not us.
America.
And
Yeah,
that's why we
you got
are
that
in
right.
desperate straits.
It is interesting that President Trump said the opposite. We have all the cards and Iran has none. So I take your
Trump
point.
doesn't have any
But
cards.
Another element here is other big global powers, China, Russia. How are they looking at this moment? Is China fearful of a more muscular United States willing to deploy power like this? Or is it basically applauding this moment?
You got it right, Challenger guy. All for Israel.
Well, I think from a Chinese point
And
of
what
view,
Epstein
one could
files?
argue that what's
Blanche said
happening
there's no
is
more to
manna
be
from
released,
heaven.
so we're done with those.
This is a case of the United States, which says that its principal threat in the world is China, and that its principal mission is to pivot to Asia and contain China, has now enmeshed itself in a war in the Persian Gulf that is causing it to pivot away from East Asia and weaken its containment strategy towards China. You want to remember that the United States is moving Patriot and THAAD missile batteries out of East Asia. This Marine Expeditionary Unit that has just been moved to the Middle East came from Japan. So what you see, Steve, is that the United States is actually weakening its military capability in East Asia. Again, we're pivoting away from East Asia, and this is manna from heaven for the Chinese. Furthermore, Chinese influence around the world is increasing. You remember
What about
I
it,
talked
Matthew?
before about the ability of a state to project power around the world, to have an effective diplomatic strategy. If you look at the United States,
NPC.
you compare it to
Did you
China
see
in
that
terms of
recent
state
Marine Corps
behavior, in terms of
graduates
which state
didn't
looks
invite
like a
their
responsible
families to the
state
graduation
following the
because
international
ICE
system?
was going to be stationed there,
Certainly looks like
looking to
China
round up
is
people,
the
looking to round
responsible
up parents
stakeholder. The Chinese
of
look
kids
like
who
they are
went
the
through
adults
basic
in the
training.
room. The United States certainly
Nice, right?
does not
That's
look
Trump's
like a
America right
responsible
there.
stakeholder.
That's Trump's
The Gulf
America.
states, the
It's a
Europeans,
racist
our
piece of
Asian
shit.
allies are all questioning whether or not the United States is playing with a full deck. All of our allies around the world can't believe what we're doing. They fully understand that we are threatening the international economy. We are threatening to take the international economy off a cliff, which is going to have devastating consequences for every state on the planet. So when you think about
A big,
where
sad,
China
fat
stands
joke,
versus
Jay.
where
Yes,
the
he
United
is.
States stands in the eyes of the world, the Chinese have benefited
Yes,
enormously
he
from
is.
this conflict.
UAE ambassador
Exit
to the United
fired
States,
12
Yusuf
generals.
Al-Taiba, just
Why?
published an op-ed recently.
Why'd he fire all
in
these
the Wall
generals?
Street Journal,
Because
where he said
they
we
don't want to
can't
do
just-
this.
A ceasefire is not enough because you will leave Iran not defeated, not crippled, able to do various things there. I'd just be interested to get your take on
sorry,
this
NPC.
because,
That's
you know,
right, you're
I
in
think
Brent.
you said America has opened
My
a Pandora's
condolences.
box of messes. Now many
Could be
people are
worse.
even
You could
saying,
be from here.
"Well, you got to continue what you're doing. Don't leave it like this." What are your thoughts?
I think this is remarkably foolish. Both the Saudis and the UAE have indicated that what
I
they'd
agree,
like to
Ark.
see the United States do is finish the war, go full bore, and defeat Iran once and for all. First of all, we're not going to defeat Iran.
Well, that's why they're in the infantry, right?
And if we march
If you
up
don't have
the
any skills,
escalation ladder, as they
you're
would
going to carry a
like us to
rifle.
do, there is a very good chance that the UAE and Saudi Arabia will be destroyed as functioning societies. You want to understand that these countries depend heavily on desalinated water, and there are a handful of desalination plants in each of these countries that are big fat targets that the Iranians can go
We're not
after.
all Israel's
And
bitch.
not only can the Iranians go after those desalination plants, they can go after their energy infrastructure, they can go after their oil and gas infrastructure, they can destroy those countries. And if the United States begins to attack a broader set of targets in Iran, the Iranians, who have been playing tit for tat all along, have made it clear that they will destroy, or they will attempt to destroy, and I think they will destroy countries like the UAE and Saudi Arabia. So if anything, Steve, what the UAE and Saudi Arabia should be doing is telling the Americans to back off and to work overtime to come up with some sort of negotiated settlement to put an end to this war. These countries, the Gulf states that is, have absolutely no interest in seeing this war continue. They had no interest in seeing this war start in the beginning. And I just don't know what they're thinking when they're talking about getting America and Israel to up the ante.
You know, other parts of the dashboard of this conflict right now are what's happening in Lebanon, Israel's commitment to essentially occupy parts of Lebanon, what's going on in Gaza. And I'm just interested in how you see the other dimensions of the Middle East beneath the Iran conflict that are also parts of the puzzle that are moving right now.
Well, let's start with Lebanon. And there are two dimensions to the war in Lebanon. One is the ground war, where the Israelis are attempting to take more territory. And I think many Israelis, especially on the right-hand side of the political spectrum,
we were big Saddam supporters.
The southern part of Lebanon.
People forget that.
The northern border of Israel up to the Litani River. And in fact, if you look carefully at what's happening in southern Lebanon at this point, the Israelis are suffering a series of tactical defeats. They are having one whale of a lot of trouble fighting against Hezbollah on the ground in southern Lebanon. And the idea that they're going to conquer all of southern Lebanon, I think, is wrong. And I think they're going to suffer a lot of casualties trying to do that. And they already are, of course. Second point I'd make is that by the end of 2025, it looked like Hezbollah had been defanged and that the Israelis had done egregious damage to Hezbollah's ability to fire rockets and missiles into Israel. So as you moved into this year, it looked like Hezbollah had been defanged and couldn't cause Israel any problems with its rockets and missiles because it had hardly any left. Israel had
He did gas
destroyed
the
all.
Kurds.
That has clearly not happened. And not only is Hezbollah firing rockets and missiles into northern Israel, and even as far as into Tel Aviv on a daily basis, but the Iranians are coordinating with Hezbollah, and the Iranians are firing missiles into northern Israel and into Lebanon itself. So the Hezbollah threat is there in spades. With regard to Gaza and the genocide, there's no question that the Israelis have slowed down the genocide. But if you look at their behavior,
That's what we do, NPC. We always supply both sides, buddy.
Cleansing all of Gaza of Palestinians, and they're pursuing a genocide in hopes that that will allow them.
And who would have thought it would come back to bite us in the ass, right?
Palestinians out of Gaza, and if they don't get them out, murder them while they're in Gaza. And we don't want to lose sight of the fact, Steve, that on the West Bank, the Israelis are launching pogroms on an almost daily basis because they're interested in ethnically cleansing the West Bank as well. So if you look at what's going on here with Israel, Israel is deeply involved in a conflict in southern Lebanon and with Hezbollah. Furthermore, it's involved in a genocide in Gaza. It's involved in pogroms on the West Bank. And furthermore, it's constantly attacking Syria. And on top of all that, it dragged the United States into a war against Iran. Israel is by far the most aggressive state in the Middle East. One could make an argument that it is the most aggressive state on the planet. This gets back to our earlier discussion of whether Iran or Israel is the greatest threat to stability in the Middle East. I don't know how anybody could make the argument that it's Iran. The answer is it's Israel. And most importantly, you want to remember that Israel is committing the greatest of all crimes, which is genocide in Gaza. And no matter what you think of the Iranian regime is not committing genocide.
It's a messy world, and that's why we always love talking to you. University of Chicago political science professor John Mearsheimer, thanks so much for joining us today.
It was my pleasure, Steve. Thanks a lot for having me.
Who would have thought training Osama would have backfired?
However this war ends, and however long it takes, one thing has become really clear. Today's world is governed by the sword. The order that prevailed over the past few decades is just crashing down and being replaced with a much more vicious system. The United States is the change agent now, using brute force where it sees oil or assets or territories that it wants. Staying in old alliances like NATO may just not be worth it for a new America.
Trump sees a grift. That's all he needs.
Heading back to the 19th century. A dog eats dog, might makes right, no rules place, where all countries are up for grabs.
And we shouldn't be going backwards into the 19th century. We should be moving forwards.
The latest news as it breaks.
What this front from Yemen is going to represent to Israel.
All right, guys, we're going to knock out another hour. I got to stand up and stretch my legs. I'll be right back. Please remember to like and subscribe. Thank you very much. Be right back.
To the United States or Israel or other countries that Iran determines is a threat to them.
And exclusive reports.
Human rights groups say emptying whole areas may amount to a war crime and a strategy to permanently depopulate the areas.
In-depth analysis of the day's headlines.
Diplomacy, yet again, was used as a ruse for war.
Critical debate.
Who betrayed the table? Who attacked the negotiations for the second time? For the third time during the talks we should be attacked? Who is talking about a greater country for itself? Israel, not Iran.
Iran has been a huge supporter of terrorism over the years. I really have to take exception to the idea that Iran is innocent in this.
Inside Story on Al Jazeera. Examining the impact of today's headlines.
The United States has perfect capability of beating any country in the world into a pulp, but it will come at a cost.
Setting the agenda for tomorrow's discussions.
Conflict, it's all created by human beings, so it can all be solved by human beings, if only we can learn to cooperate.
International filmmakers and world-class journalists bring programs to inform and inspire you on Al Jazeera.
It's 2300 GMT. This is Al Jazeera live from Doha with our continuing coverage of the war between the U.S., Israel, and Iran. Hello, I'm Mohammed Jamjoom. Coming up, Donald Trump says the U.S. will step up attacks if a deal isn't reached in 48 hours. Tehran has rejected the threat.
This is shrapnel inside one of the rooms of the ground floor of
this Taco strikes again.
Extend to other parts like this one.
Hospitals and universities are hit in U.S.-Israeli airstrikes. We report from the scene of those attacks in Tehran. U.S. and Iranian forces search for an American airman who is still missing after a warplane was shot down over Iran on Friday. And Italy's prime minister visits Qatar, looking to address the conflict's impact on Europe's energy supply. Donald Trump says all hell will rain down on Iran if it doesn't open the Strait of Hormuz by Monday. On social media,
such lovely rhetoric from a sitting president.
Remember when I gave Iran 10 days to make a deal or open up the Hormuz Strait? Time is running out. 48 hours before all hell will rain down on them.
The art of the deal.
Rejected Trump's threat.
And he spelled rain wrong.
Iran would respond without limitation
because he's stupid
against U.S. and Israeli targets if Trump followed through. In Iran, the search for a missing U.S. weapons officer is about to enter a third day. The F-15 jet the crew member was in was shot down over the southwest of the country on Friday. Well, we're live in Amman.
He's got to be out of rations at this point.
And that's
we're
where
getting
we
close.
Start with Mohammed Val in the Iranian capital. Mohammed, how are Iranian officials reacting to these latest threats from Donald Trump?
Mohammed, they have been reacting even before this latest statement on the remaining 48 hours. Over the last few days, they have been saying that the Americans and the Israelis are already executing those threats against power plants here, against petrochemical companies, and even other civilian infrastructures in the country, and that Iran also has been reacting and retaliating against that. So this deadline for them is already void because the threat is being executed, even if probably on a lesser scale. And the statements, the latest we have is from the Major General Ali Abdullahi, commander of the Khatam al-Anbiya Central Headquarters, responding to Trump's threat. If the American Zionist enemy carries out an aggression, we will without limitation subject all the infrastructures used by the U.S. terrorist army as well as the infrastructures of the Zionist regime to continuous and devastating attacks. In another statement by the spokesman of the Khatam al-Anbiya,
Trump and Bibi won't be happy until everything over there is on fire.
Entire
Everything.
region will turn into a hell for you. The mirage of defeating the Islamic Republic of Iran has turned into a swamp in which you are sinking. So this is the type of statements
We are sinking
coming
in a
from
swamp.
the military commanders here in Iran, and they are seriously trying to convince the Americans and the Israelis that it is going to be painful for them and for their interests in the region and for the people in the region also as a whole, not Iran only.
And Mohammed, let me also ask you, where does the situation stand in Iran when it comes to the search for the crew member from that downed U.S. fighter jet?
For the last, most of the last 24 hours, it was a bit calm and ambiguous. There hasn't been much activity going on until the last few hours. We have some new reports of clashes, or at least sound of helicopters in the air, and a strike on a place called Dehdasht, a strike on a communication tower in that area. And according to local reports, local authorities, 4 people have been killed and 1 injured in those strikes, which indicates a kind of fresh attempt by the Americans to try to find that pilot, and rumors in the area that probably they are trying to kill him if they can't rescue him. As per some of the military creeds, the US and Israel, to prevent his being captured or being in custody in Iran.
Trump is claiming that we just struck Tehran
So it just
a few
gives you
minutes
the
ago
atmosphere of what's going on.
and killed a
There
bunch of
is
their
actually
leaders.
some activity going on, new activity going on to try to find that pilot, and it involves strikes in the region Kogiluya province, where that plane was downed.
All right, that's Al Jazeera's Mohammed Val live for us with all the latest in Tehran. Thanks so much, Mohammed. Meanwhile, in the U.S., there's been little official reaction to the search for the missing crew member. Al Jazeera's Mike Hanna reports from Washington, D.C.
Neither the White House nor the Pentagon have commented on these ongoing search operations for the crewman who was brought down by Iranian air defenses. And there's also been no explanation from the Pentagon or indeed the White House as to why, just days after they claimed that Iranian air defenses had been obliterated, you have U.S. aircraft being shot down by the self-same air defenses. So this is a major problem for President Trump. Certainly there's going to be a public reaction as the saga continues. While the search continues for the missing crew member, the fact that U.S. aircraft were shot down in skies that the U.S. insisted it had complete control over is something deeply concerning to many Americans and probably to the White House as well.
Russia's state nuclear company has evacuated another 200 staff from Iran's Bushehr nuclear power plant. Earlier, the facility in southern Iran was attacked for a 4th time since the start of the war. The strike hit the perimeter, killing 1 person. Initial assessments show no sign of damage to the plant's main units, but Iran's Atomic Energy Agency has warned of a potential nuclear accident. And Iran's foreign minister, Abbas Araghchi, warned on Saturday that radioactive fallout from an accident would, in his words, end life in Gulf capital cities. U.S. and Israeli forces have launched strikes on a university and hospital in northern Tehran. Iran's science minister has told Al Jazeera more than 30 universities have been targeted across the country since the conflict began 5 weeks ago. Tehran has
You're out of
threatened to
military
retaliate
targets, so
with
now you're
attacks on
hitting schools again.
US-affiliated schools in the region.
It's a genius move.
Tawhid Asadi went to
It's a
the
war
scene of
crime.
the latest strikes
But whatever.
and has this report.
I guess international law and Geneva Conventions don't matter anymore.
At the campus of Shahid Beheshti University, where this laser and plasma research institute was targeted. On Friday, a U.S.-Israeli strike hit the university in Tehran, badly damaging those
Hello all,
facilities.
welcome.
It's not the
Sorry I
first
haven't
to
been
be
paying
targeted.
attention in the chat the last few
Earlier
minutes.
this week, attacks struck the Iran University of Science and Technology. Last month, one of his faculty members was killed at home, along with his 2 children. Iran's Minister of Science, Research and Technology told Al Jazeera that more than 30 universities have been targeted so far.
More than 60 university students have been martyred to date, along with several professors. This not only brings international responsibility, but will also forever tarnish humanity's memory of the aggressors. Humanity will never forget that the US, with all its claims of upholding human rights, has now targeted knowledge and scholars.
The Red Crescent says more than 760 schools have been hit. Over the past weeks, the scope of those strikes has expanded as the US and Israel increasingly attack civilian infrastructure. We are in southern areas of the Iranian capital, Tehran, where a residential and commercial area was targeted, and this building, a hospital, was severely impacted. A US-Israeli attack hit this area last weekend. It destroyed the market that was here. Across the street, the force of explosion also caused extensive damage to Del Aram Sina Hospital. Hospital management says it has been impossible for them to continue caring for patients.
The blast from the airstrike on the street outside caused serious damage to the hospital. Most of our patients have mental health conditions, and a calm environment is essential for their care.
Inside the hospital,
I can't stand how reckless we are with all this. This is the type of stuff that when I was growing up, we expected from our enemies to do stuff like this. Not us. We are supposed to be better than this. Why aren't we better than this?
More than 350 health centers have been damaged since the start of the war, and the Red Crescent says at least 18 of its facilities have been damaged, as well as dozens of pharmaceutical sites. That includes Pasteur Institute of Iran, a century-old vaccine production hub. And as the US threatens to target more civilian facilities such as power plants and bridges, people in Iran are being left to cope with the consequences. Toida Sadi, Al Jazeera, Tehran.
Yemen's Houthi group has announced it carried out a joint long-range attack on Israel alongside
I guess Trump has given up on trying to rally the Iranian people to stand up and fight against the regime, right? Bombing schools and hospitals and power facilities.
The Yemeni armed forces, with God's help, carried out a fifth military operation, using a fissile ballistic missile and several drones targeting Lod Airport in
Welcome,
the Jaffa
Deborah.
area and vital military targets
The
belonging
demons
to
are in
Israeli
charge?
in southern occupied Palestine.
Yes, they are.
This operation was conducted jointly with the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the Iranian Army, and Hezbollah in Lebanon, and it successfully achieved its objectives.
Earlier, a wave of Iranian cluster missiles hit at least 10 locations in central Israel. Israel says one attack in Ramat Gan caused a building to partially collapse. An electricity line was also damaged, causing a power outage in several parts of the city. A major fire was also
Iran
reported
is
at
not
a
Iraq.
military-linked facility in Beersheba. At least 4 people have been injured.
Nope. Completely different
and in northern
animal.
Israel, missiles targeted the city of Kiryat Shmona. Hezbollah claimed responsibility, saying it launched a barrage in the early hours of Saturday morning. Separately, hundreds of people took to the streets in Israel to demand an end to the war in Iran. Protesters gathered in Tel Aviv's main square, as well as in several major cities, including Jerusalem and Haifa. Demonstrations are held every Saturday against the Netanyahu government. Well,
Hey,
Rob
Davey.
McBride joins us now live from the Jordanian capital, Amman. Rob, Israel has been coming under attack from Iran, Hezbollah, and the Houthis in Yemen. And meanwhile, we've heard an Israeli official saying they're ready to hit Iranian energy facilities, that they're just waiting for the green light from the U.S. What else are you learning?
I can't wait till Bibi's dead.
Yeah, that's right. It appears that senior military officials in Israel and security officials have been briefing widely to the media there, and we're getting reports of what the next phase of Israel's air campaign might look like, with a concentration, with a focus on the energy sector, with talk about hitting various electricity plants and distribution networks, very much ready to go within the next few days, which would sync perfectly with this 48-hour deadline as given by US President Donald Trump. On Saturday evening, Prime Minister Netanyahu also issued a video statement just explaining where the air campaign by Israel's Air Force is currently up to. We know that the campaign has broadened to attack more broadly the general infrastructure of Iran, targeting so-called dual-use industries such as the steel industry, which can have both a civilian and military application, saying that currently around 70% of the steel industry of Iran has been destroyed, with the justification being that steel from those works are used in armaments manufacture. Similarly, it's because of the petrochemicals and some of the materials it uses that petrochemical plants are now being targeted. This is the next phase, according to Netanyahu. Both, he says, are being used to fund what he calls terror against Israel and the rest of the world. And talking of those missiles, just in the last few minutes, we've had confirmation that the latest ballistic missile launched from Iran has been intercepted over the city of Beersheba in the south of Israel, breaking up and with debris falling to the earth, but with no reports of casualties.
And Rob, as all that is going on, Israel is also intensifying its invasion of South Lebanon. Are there indications at this point that Israel's end game is further occupation?
Of course it is. That's all they know.
Yeah, I mean, it has
kill and occupy, kill and occupy.
There have been various incursions
come on.
over the years in conflict with Hezbollah, and it does seem
get going on over here.
The authorities in Israel and possibly preparing the public for
little wine tonight,
ahead,
some
and
shots.
As a justification for this expanding operation.
I'll be lit later.
In southern Lebanon, with the military reminding people just how potent a force Hezbollah still remains. It says that it has enough rockets to be able to launch around 200.
I don't know, NPC, maybe. I mean, Trump didn't go golfing this weekend, which was a huge tell about something. I mean, you would think that something, he's going to try something, right? Their 48 hours are up unless he tacos again. But I mean, it's one thing to walk onto the island and take it. It's another thing to hold it when thousands of drones are falling down on your head. And American kids are getting killed and blown up left and right. Nobody here wants to see that. I'm telling you, the American people don't want our kids coming home in body bags anymore, or oil and bullshit.
Accusing the police of using the emergency powers that are currently in force and which restrict public gatherings to just 50 people, using those measures as a way of trying to stifle, it seems, dissent. Mohammed?
All right, that's Al Jazeera's Rob McBride live for us from the Jordanian.
Greater Israel, yeah, I know.
Thanks so much for breaking that all down for us. Israeli forces have pounded the southern suburb.
Why don't we just nuke everybody and just give Israel all of it? Right? Just get this over with.
The army says it was targeting Hezbollah infrastructure.
He always does taco, man. So there's every chance that he's going to taco again. We'll see.
Heidi, Israel has invaded the south.
I mean, he has to see the poll numbers unless they're hiding them from him. You know, hiding all the data from him, how bad things are going for him.
Yeah, so a couple of hours ago, the Israeli military warned that they would target the Masna border crossing. That is the main border crossing between Lebanon and Syria. Thousands of people use it every day. In fact, more than
good. I'm glad they're losing tanks
in the last month to evacuate Lebanon towards Syria. Now, most of those were Syrian nationals who had fled the war in Syria and were living here in Lebanon, but also about 30,000 Lebanese, according to UNHCR. So it's a critical crossing point for people, for goods. It's also used by humanitarian organizations to move supplies back and forth between the two countries. Israel says that the reason it's going to target that crossing is because it's being used by Hezbollah to transport weapons and for military purposes. They haven't supplied any evidence.
Iran lacks air defense. They just shot down 2 of our jets.
The other side of that, for their part, have said this is a purely civilian crossing. It's not used by military. There are no militias present in the area. In fact, they have been arresting over the last couple of weeks.
They have to be feeding him false information, right? Everybody loves you. Everybody loves the war. Everybody loves when American kids come home in caskets.
The target stretches from the Lebanese customs point about 3.5 kilometers of the road in towards Syria. Now, that part of the road ordinarily houses hundreds of trucks because there's been a backlog of drivers and goods there due to some new import restrictions.
The only power we have is to vote, man.
A couple of months ago. So
use our voice like this, get the word out, get the truth out.
Sleeping in the cabs All of them have now had to evacuate, along with the staff of the Lebanese side. I spoke to a customs agent there a couple of hours ago. He confirmed that the crossing
Yeah,
is
Gaza looks
closed.
great nowadays, doesn't
Everybody
it?
has been evacuated, but what this is an expansion of Israel's targeting of civilian infrastructure here in Lebanon. They've been systematically destroying bridges across the Litani River in the south of the country, and that has had the effect of isolating South Lebanon, where there's this ongoing ground invasion from the rest of the country. We saw them blow up 2 further bridges in the Bekaa Valley last night. But now, with this declaration of an intention to destroy the main border crossing
Where you
between
going?
Israel and Lebanon, between
You're a butt.
Syria
Stop
and Lebanon,
crying.
they're not just isolating parts of Lebanon from itself, but also isolating Lebanon from its neighbors.
And Heidi, let me ask you a bit more about what's going on in southern Lebanon, because there's also the question of those UN peacekeeping forces in southern Lebanon. That outfit is known as UNIFIL. They monitor the border between Lebanon and Israel. They've done so for decades. 3 peacekeepers were killed recently. Where do things stand with all that now?
Yeah, as you mentioned, so the total number of peacekeepers who've been killed in this last month is 3. That was in 2 separate incidents where Indonesian peacekeepers were
We're hitting
killed.
peacekeepers.
A number of others have
It's
been
genius.
injured as well. So the investigations are
I mean, they're a
ongoing
big threat,
into
right?
those incidents where the Indonesians were killed. The UN says that it needs more time to do that. Israel has already pointed the finger at Hezbollah. It hasn't provided any evidence for that yet. But there have been other incidents where Ghanaian peacekeepers were injured when their base was targeted by Israeli tank fire. Now, UNIFIL
One could only
investigated
hope,
that
War.
incident, concluded it was the Israelis, who then came out and said, yes, that was us, but it was by mistake. But in the last 24 hours, what has happened is that around the UNIFIL headquarters, that's in a town called
I don't know,
Nabura,
NPC.
down on the Mediterranean Sea, very close to the Israeli border, Israeli troops have been present in that town for about a week now. They've been systematically destroying buildings and civilian homes, moving tanks around. And what they've done today is destroyed all of the CCTV cameras around the UNIFIL base.
Yeah, Israel's a
Now,
nuclear
UNIFIL
power
in a
because of
statement
us.
condemned that. They said
It was
they
a
were
genius
launching
move.
a formal objection. And they've reminded Israel of their responsibility to ensure the safety and security of peacekeepers. There's both civilian and military peacekeepers in that site. But what
I've
this
been to the
does
moon.
is it makes it much harder for the UN to investigate the source of any fire that targets that base. Projectiles have landed in there in the last week or so. And they now have a lot less visibility of what the Israelis are doing when they're operating near their base. And indeed, if there are further incidents where they're targeted by Israeli fire, their ability to investigate that has now been greatly hindered.
All right, that's Heidi Pett live for us from Beirut. Thanks so much, Heidi. The renewed threat on Iran's energy facilities by President Trump raises concerns for Gulf nations caught in the crossfire of the U.S.-Israeli war on Iran. Well, let's speak now to Victoria Gatenby. She's live for us here in Doha. Victoria, if President Trump carries out his threat and Iran responds, what could that mean for the Gulf region?
Well, attacking Gulf countries has been part of Iran's retaliatory strategy from day one of this war. And because of that, Gulf countries are absolutely opposed to any kind of escalation in this conflict, because the concern is if the US and Israel further attack Iran's energy infrastructure, Iran could choose to attack similar sites here in the Gulf. Now, Iran has said that it is only really attacking US military bases, US assets in this region, but we know from what's been happening over the past 5 weeks and from what Gulf leaders have been saying that they have very much been targeting civilian infrastructure and critical energy infrastructure in this region. In the last hour or so, Kuwait has sounded its alarm. It says it's dealing with more missile and drone attacks with its air defense systems. We've seen
Israel's real tough when they're killing children and old men and women.
Gas facilities, the list goes on and on. And the GCC has said that it's been very restrained in the face of these attacks, but increasingly countries are talking about the fact that their patience is not unlimited, particularly
Who killed the
Saudi Arabia has
peacekeepers?
been talking in the last,
I think it was
week or
Israeli
so
soldiers.
about its right to self-defense under Article 51 of the UN Charter. At the moment, the GCC's position is that it's calling for de-escalation and dialogue. Qatar in particular has said all wars need to end with some kind of diplomatic settlement. But if these attacks escalate in this region on Iran, some countries in this region certainly have been saying that sort of defensive posture might have to change.
Meanwhile, Victoria, Italy's Prime Minister, Giorgia Meloni, is wrapping up a tour to 3 Gulf countries. She was in Doha earlier on Saturday. Let's just take a listen to what she had to say about the visit.
My girl.
Clearly, it is not a symbolic visit. Of course, what we wanted to give is also a message of solidarity towards nations that are partners, that are friends, and that continue to suffer unjustified attacks from Iran. But our goal was not simply to bear witness. It was and it is to lend a hand to address the problems and thus be able to better defend Italian national interests.
Yeah, I saw they hacked his phone. That was funny. Released a bunch of pictures. He's a clown.
Contracts or even stops. The price increases for everyone. And if it worsens, we can reach the point of not having all the energy that is necessary, even in Italy.
Because nobody in Congress can pronounce his full name. Because they're all a bunch of ignorant hicks.
Well, Giorgia Meloni was the first leader from an EU country, from a NATO country to visit this region.
He's what happens when you hire people from Fox News weekend shows to run your country. Him and Hexeth,
and she said in her statement
Tulsi Gabbard, Bondi, Janine Pirro, all Fox News losers.
It gets about 15% of its total oil supplies from the Gulf region, including Saudi Arabia and the UAE. So part of this visit was symbolic in the sense that she wanted to be seen to be standing with Gulf leaders during this very difficult time, during this conflict. Part of it also was about securing, though, Italy's critical energy needs. She made it very
that's the type of behavior we expect from the Iranians, right? We are supposed to be better than that. We're supposed to be above that. We are supposed to abide by international law and the Geneva Convention and not double tap bridges and hit schools and civilian infrastructure.
All right,
that's for third-rate regimes to do, like Iran, not us. And the fact that we're doing it and Hexeth is fine with it and Trump is fine with it is a fucking problem. The fact that Bibi is doing it is a fucking problem.
Well, let's take a look at some of the day's other news now. An Israeli airstrike has killed at least 1 Palestinian in Gaza. The attack hit a civilian vehicle near the Al-Maghazi.
Is there anything left to hit in Gaza?
Several others were injured. Israel has attacked Gaza nearly every day, despite a ceasefire that was agreed to last October.
Whatever. More war crimes.
Have been killed since then.
From the Israelis.
Around 20 French boats have left the port of Marseille to join an international aid flotilla that aims to break Israel's blockade of Gaza. The boats are heading to Spain, where they will set off with 80 other vessels that hope to deliver humanitarian supplies.
That's true too, man.
Last year, the Israeli
Navy is a bunch of
racists. Hundreds of activists on board another flotilla heading to Gaza. The crew were deported to their home countries. At least 12 people are now known to have died in an earthquake that struck northeastern Afghanistan. A building collapsed during the 5.8 magnitude quake on Friday. 8 members of the same family were killed.
Yes, it is.
Refugees who were recently forced to leave Iran. A 2-year-old child was the only survivor. 5 other houses were completely destroyed and 33 partially damaged, affecting a total of 40 families. In the past 10 days, another 77 people have died in Afghanistan in floods and landslides. Nearly 800 homes have been destroyed. More rain has been forecast.
This country is just filled with a bunch of ignorant hicks, man.
At least 5 people have died after a fire broke out at a gas lighter factory in Bangladesh's capital, Dhaka. It took several hours to bring the blaze under control. The cause is being investigated.
Hello, Nikolai.
Iraq's footballers have returned home to celebrations after they qualified for the FIFA World Cup for the first time in 4 decades.
I agree.
Thousands lined the streets in Baghdad as an open-top bus carried.
I'd rather watch a bad SNL skit.
Iraq became the 48th and final
Saturday.
team to qualify for the global event after they beat Bolivia on Tuesday. It's brought some welcome relief to many residents in the capital who have endured a series of missile and drone strikes in recent weeks.
Today, I am very happy. Just like the rest of the 46 million Iraqis inside and outside Iraq, this team is the only source of our joy. We have nothing else to be happy for but this team. This team gave us the feeling that it represents all ethnicities in Iraq. Bravo to this team, which has made us proud and happy in these difficult days, in these days of war with attacks and missiles. Many thanks to them.
NASA has released the first images taken by astronauts aboard the Orion capsule as it heads towards the moon. The 4 crew members have now passed the halfway point between Earth and the moon. They will fly between 6,500 and 10,000 kilometers above the lunar surface, orbiting around the moon before returning to Earth. It's the first time in more than 50 years that humans have left the Earth's orbit. The Artemis program aims to land astronauts on the moon by 2028.
Yesterday, we were looking out the docking hatch, which is off the camera to the top side, and we were just starting to see the moon, and it just looked different. And we were catching glimpses of the far side, the side that you can never see from Earth, of Grimaldi, of Oriental. We were just starting to see around Grimaldi into that far. And as 4 humans who have looked at the moon our entire lives, it just looked different out the window, and that is wild. It just really put our place in the universe in perspective.
Well, up next is Inside Story. This episode looks at why Pakistan's economy has been hit hard by the war in Iran. The news continues here in just over 30 minutes from now.
Sprawling across 2,600 hectares, the Dangote Refinery was built to help end Nigeria's reliance on imported fuel. But today, this 650,000 barrel per day giant is being asked to do much more. Shipping disruptions caused by the war in Iran have throttled nearly a fifth of the world's energy flow. With Middle Eastern supplies diverted or delayed, Africa is feeling the squeeze and looking for a lifeline closer to home.
The Dangote Refinery here in Lekki has become a vital strategic shield for Nigeria and many other countries. The 650,000 barrel a day facility provides steady supply of fuel as international markets grapple with depleted inventories.
Low domestic crude production means the refinery is often starved of the very oil sitting beneath Nigerian soil, forcing the plant to look abroad for raw materials. For now, the race is on to see if African production can outrun a global energy crisis.
The war in the Middle East has worsened the economic crisis in Pakistan. Most of its energy supplies are shipped through the Strait of Hormuz, which Iran has largely blocked for 5 weeks. As global oil and gas prices soar, how will Pakistan deal with the consequences? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Rishad Salamat. Soon after the war between the United States, Israel and Iran began, its ripple effects were evident. Pakistan stands out as one of the countries paying a heavy price. It's heavily dependent on energy supplies from the Gulf, and with the Strait of Hormuz blocked, the government increased the fuel price twice in a month. The weak economy was already struggling, and authorities say the move was unavoidable. But it triggered mass protests, with people furious at the decision to pass on the burden of higher costs. In response, the Prime Minister announced a series of subsidies and support packages. But they are temporary, and economists are warning that if the war drags on, the fallout could be unprecedented. Why is Pakistan more vulnerable to the current crisis than other countries? What can it do to mitigate the impact? We'll discuss those issues and more with our guests in a moment. But first, this report from Michael Apple.
5 weeks into the war in the Middle East, and the global economic consequences are stacking up. Iran's eastern neighbor, Pakistan, is among the worst affected. The country imports 85% of its crude oil from Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates through the Strait of Hormuz, and nearly 20% of its liquefied natural gas comes from the region. Karachi has emerged as a major transit hub for vessels diverted away from the Gulf because of the conflict.
Yes, they will.
The port has handled a year's worth of container ships in just 24 days. In addition, the economy is weak and dependent on bailouts. The government recently reached a preliminary agreement with the International Monetary Fund for a $1.2 billion loan. Pakistan has taken 24 IMF support packages in the past 7 decades. On the streets, people are frustrated with the rising cost of living. The government has imposed 2 major fuel price increases since the war began. In early March, petrol and diesel went up roughly 20%. Then on Friday, authorities announced petrol would be nearly 43% more expensive, leading to long queues at fuel stations. But less than a day later, Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif partly reversed the hike, cutting the petrol price by 17.5% and declaring public transport would be free for a month in some areas, including the capital.
The public cannot afford these increases. The government needs to give relief. Fuel ships are coming to Pakistan. No Pakistani ships are being stopped in the Strait of Hormuz.
I love
so
it.
why are prices increasing?
Yeah, we don't make a plan. They can't figure it out what it is, right? It doesn't exist.
The oil on board
Gotta keep everybody guessing. I guess that's part of the art of the deal, right?
Is immediately felt at the pump.
That's hilarious.
The energy crisis comes as Pakistan
It's like the Don Rowe doctrine or something.
During the hottest
Hilarious.
summer months.
There may be a war going on, but shouldn't we also
no
think
thanks.
about our people? What is a poor man
Trump is
supposed
dumb enough. We don't need someone who fondles Trump's balls to be president.
All his money goes to petrol while there's hunger at home.
To ease the pressure, Islamabad has rolled out emergency relief measures. Among them, a 4-day week for some government offices, extended school holidays, and online classes. But these are temporary solutions, and the fact remains Pakistan is facing another cash crunch, compounded by a geopolitical crisis with no apparent end in sight. Mike Lappel, Al Jazeera, for Inside
The
Story.
Don Rowe doctrine. Yeah. It's about what it is.
Well,
He would have been better
our
off
guest
invading
from
Cuba.
Karachi is,
Would have been
Kaiser
much
bin
easier.
Ali.
It'd be
He's an
over
economist
already.
and the former head of the policy reform unit for the chief minister
Now he's got
of
us involved in another forever war in the Middle East. Something he promised he wouldn't do, right?
Council and specializes in South Asia.
I mean, the Rubes voted for him for lower prices and no more wars.
Founder and CEO of Prime,
They got the exact opposite, and they're all like, bah, they love it.
In Pakistan, a warm welcome to each one of you.
Because they're in a
My first
cult.
question is going to be to you, Michael. Why is Pakistan more exposed and vulnerable to this war in West Asia compared to other countries?
I think there are 3 reasons. One is, as your report noted, a very heavy reliance on hydrocarbon imports from the Middle East. You have very high growing demand for these energy sources at home and domestic
Hey,
production.
I just want you guys to
simply
know,
can't keep up,
I'm
and
missing
Pakistan, to this
Messi
point,
play
hasn't
tonight
been able
for
to
you guys.
sufficiently diversify
That's
its
how much I
sources
love
of
you.
energy imports, its hydrocarbon imports beyond the Middle East. A second factor I would highlight relates to remittances. There are a significant number of Pakistani expatriates who are living and working in the broader Middle East, particularly in the GCC countries, and they send home significant amounts of remittances, which are critical to the economy. So if that's interrupted by conflict, then you're going to have problems
Yeah,
for the
why?
economy.
Why are they the
And
most
third
extreme?
factor is what I would describe as structural
Tell me.
factors linked to Pakistan's broader
Feed
economy.
me.
It simply is particularly vulnerable to global economic shocks because of what the Pakistan economy is. It's inherently weak. You don't have a diversified export strategy. You have high levels of debt. So you have cycles of crisis all the time, and it's always going to be made worse when you have a crisis like the one that you had now. And in recent months, we had seen some successes for Pakistan's macroeconomy, but I would argue that that was largely tied to an increase in
We can only
external
hope,
funding,
man. We
particularly
can only
from,
hope.
from the IMF. Pakistan nearly defaulted on
Will
its
Trump be
loans
the one
just a few
leading
years
the way
ago, so
by
it's just
drinking the
inherently
Kool-Aid with
vulnerable.
them?
And I think that helps explain why it's in the situation it is today.
Well, there's subjects we're going to be covering during the course of the program. Guys, what's your take?
Thank you. I'll take a somewhat long-term view, supporting what Michael has said. For the past 25, 30 years, we have created an economy that is very import dependent, not just on oil, but on other products as well, including food now, including cotton for our textile industry. And we are paying the price today of excessive dependence on imports for basic commodities, food include oil, energy and food included. So we are paying the price of that
I agree.
governance of the last 25,
But
30
Biden
years.
at least tried to get us onto electric a little bit. Offered incentives to buy electric vehicles, wanted to expand the infrastructure for charging. Trump shut all that down. Trump's the oil baron here, him and his oil buddies.
Well, in my view, I think Pakistan has made significant improvements in at least some parts
Welcome,
of
Pascal.
its economy in terms of structure. If
It
you
is
look
our
at, for
cost, but
instance,
not our
the
interest.
exchange
I
rate,
agree.
some privatization programs started. Trade tariff reforms have been implemented. So I think Pakistan was actually has been on the right track for last
Netanyahu's a
1.5
war
years,
criminal, and Trump's
as far
following
as
right behind
reforms
him.
and structural reforms are concerned. So this particular
Hello,
moment
Michael.
of crisis is particularly very
Welcome.
sensitive for Pakistan because we were just barely, going to enter, a growth phase when suddenly pressure from the current account from the import side due to the Middle East crisis has arrived. So it will be difficult, of course, for Pakistan to
Bibi
manage. And
Nosferatu.
that's why we
I
are
like it.
seeing, government first offering subsidy.
I don't know
then
why you got to take a
withdrawing
shot
it.
at Nosferatu. What
So
did
I
he ever
think
do
this
to
is
you, man?
a test case also. But at the same time, in my view, this crisis also provides an opportunity to address some of the very long-term structural issues in energy market and electricity market, particularly for Pakistan.
I hear you,
especially
Ryan.
on cutting down of public spending.
Anybody with a brain would have
So
known
that's
that this
where
was
we are
going to
looking
be a
forward,
mistake.
because otherwise, if we look at our import and export structure, I believe that most of our imports are inelastic in nature. They are non-luxury, and so therefore we have
Do you ever see the movie?
keep growing the economy, keep it open.
The
but at the
Nosferatu
same
movie?
time,
I mean, like the
keep this
original
crisis,
silent
cut
film.
down government expenditure where we
Great
can.
stuff.
Ali, I just wanted to
Classic.
add something to what you were saying there. Just get your
That,
view on
Metropolis,
the economy was
The
important,
Cabinet
but
of
there
Dr.
were signs of
Caligari,
stabilization, as
classic
you,
silent movies.
hinted at there.
But I'm old.
I mean, I suppose it's all
What
going
do
to
I
be
know?
really how long this war drags on for, and that would really mean that if it goes on for a long time, we could really see that recovery, that stabilization upended.
Cool.
No, I agree with you. I mean, look at the inflation rate. We came down from 38% of inflation about 2 years ago to less than 5% late last quarter of the previous year, and now it's
Yeah,
going up
Metropolis
again.
is
It's
a
already
classic,
touching
man.
8%. And of course, recently we have seen the transport costs have gone up 25%, and other prices are rising. So you're absolutely right that this crisis is particularly creating more difficulties for Pakistan.
I agree about the solar panels
And some of the gains which we made
and all that tech.
in currency stabilization,
Wind power, solar,
through forex operations of state
electric
banks,
vehicles. I'm for all
or
of it.
other
Trump isn't.
macroeconomic measure, maybe up to a major challenge now.
Yeah, Michael, it all does come also as Islamabad is trying to secure a bailout from the IMF, and those talks are teetering a little bit at the moment. Now, Islamabad seems never to fix the roof, as it were, when the sun is shining.
I mean, as I said before, external financing is critical for Pakistan's macroeconomy. And so
Really,
I think when we
NPC.
look at the issue of the state of the economy in
Interesting.
Pakistan, even in the best of times, we have to distinguish between the macroeconomy and the microeconomy. And as Ali noted, and as I think I noted before,
Really?
there have been some indications
House
of
of the
improvement with inflation
Rothschild.
down, foreign reserves coming to a better level, and so on. And indeed, as Ali
What
noted,
streaming
there's been
service is that
success
on?
the reforms front. There have been some major developments in privatizing state-owned industries, which have been a major burden on the economy because of their high debt. So there's all that. But in terms of the microeconomy, poverty levels continue to be very concerning. Household income figures continue to be very concerning, and obviously that's where the vulnerability lies, and that's where you have to look when you see what impact this crisis, this conflict in the Middle East will have on common people in Pakistan, including those that you interviewed in your report. Those that are not able to get gas at a good price, and,
Oh, Boris
and so on.
Karloff.
That is
Sweet.
the concern. And I would also argue that indeed Pakistan
Looks
is
like it's on
following this
YouTube.
pattern that it's followed for so long of going
Cool.
for external
Cool.
financing to try to, strengthen the macroeconomy. And many governments in Pakistan, pretty much all
Excellent.
governments in Pakistan
I'm
over
gonna
the
have to
last few
check it out.
decades have said that they want to end their reliance on the likes of the IMF, but it simply has not yet happened yet because the structural factors that I noted continue to
Hello,
be
Deborah.
very significant
Yeah,
constraints.
his twin. Yeah, I know. That's who he
truly
gets all his
building out a
information from.
sustained
He talks to
economy,
himself.
sustainable economy that doesn't need
He's
to
the smartest
resort
person he
on those
knows.
external
So,
crutches.
yeah.
Kaiser, we had last year's floods. They took a massive toll on the country's agricultural sector, which is the biggest sector of the economy. The thing is, we've got now higher fertilizer prices coming through, higher fuel costs. This could really necessarily mean that we could have another inflationary shock and further currency debasement.
The subject of structural change and the point of view that
Fucking cats are crying.
Pakistan was
Jesus
on the
Christ.
verge of stabilizing and
Shut up.
taking off on the growth path. In my 40 years career, I've heard this at least 20 times. Every time an IMF program is into the second year, this statement is made that those numbers of inflation and others are improving and we are just about to take off into growth. But that never happens and it will not happen again, even if the war had not come by. You see, the point is that for every 100 rupees of revenue, our expenditure is 130 rupees. 230 rupees. And for every $100 of exports, our imports are $220. This is not a one-off or 5-year, 2-year, 3-year phenomena. This massive deficit has been there for about 25 to 30 years. And we have covered this deficit by taking loans. Now we are taking loans just to repay past loans. We even, if loans are not available, then
Hey,
we ask
welcome to the
friendly
party,
countries
pal.
to deposit
We've been doing that for
2-3-4 billion
decades here in the
rupees
United
our
States.
account just so that it looks good.
Works out for us,
But
kind of.
this is not how you run an economy.
You got that right.
It's completely import dependent. We have run down our manufacturing sector. We have run down our agriculture sector and created a casino economy where money is made by about a dozen sectors and families out of the stock market, the property market, and import under invoicing. The rest of the discussion on where the inflation rate is and what the dollar rate is basically is neither here nor there because we are no longer a productive economy depending on loans.
Kaiser,
and
didn't you resign from the government because you were recommending the abolishment of 17 divisions, nearly 50 government organizations, saying that it was really down to fiscal hemorrhaging?
Yes, I did. There are 17. I was in this Prime Minister's committee for 5 months, and they gave me access to all the data from the Finance Ministry. I established that 17 ministries need to be abolished. 60 attached departments need to be abolished. I would also say that it is time to look at defense expenditure and all that part of defense expenditure which is not related to fighting a war externally or internally. That part has to be run down to zero. And I have examples to show you what those can be. A large part of the defense expenditure has nothing to do with national security. So I think there's a whole restructuring of both our fiscal and our foreign trade is necessary. And I also don't agree that our imports are inelastic. We, over the last, again, 30 years plus, we shifted our intercity goods transport from rail to road. Road uses 1/3 more fuel per kilometer than rail. So if we can start shifting back to rail and close down the certain parts of the road sector, we will actually reduce our oil imports by about 15%. So I think these structural changes will need to be made if Pakistan is not to face similar situations in the future. And for the present, we just have to survive whichever way we can.
Michael, I mean, I think there's a big laundry list there, isn't there?
Absolutely. And another factor I'd add, another challenge is investor perceptions. Pakistan for many years suffered from terrorist attacks, particularly especially terrible period between around 2007, 2014. And the situation stabilized for some time. But since the Taliban returned to power in Afghanistan, we've seen an upsurge in terrorist violence, mainly in the border regions near Iran and Afghanistan. But this is something that's become a concern, and I think Pakistan's government is always looking to draw in more investment to try to strengthen its various sectors. I think if this terrorist challenge continues to resurge, then that's going to be something else that has to be added to the laundry list of issues to address.
Ali, is the military budget actually sustainable? And we're not just talking about the official budget, but there's also the unofficial budget here as well. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I agree with the earlier statement by Dr. Kessler about rationalizing, especially non-combative military budget, and I think there is a room to reduce that budget. However, I have looked at the fiscal trends in terms of military budget in last 20 years. And contrary to the popular perception, which is like we are spending a lot on the military, in terms of per capita, the expenditure has been coming down for overall defense budgeting. So yes, there are there is room to rationalize and reduce within the defense. But if you look at what percentage of budget we are spending, let's say on civil government, on pensions, on the defense, relatively we are spending less on the budget today than we were spending 10 years ago. Now, of course, there are other sources of inefficiencies in the budget: state-owned enterprises, power sector subsidies, grants, which we have not been able to really cut down, and there are other sources like the departments which are not needed. But I think recently also, if you look at the situation with India and Pakistan, obviously in that respect, I would say that people feel that Pakistan military has been able to defend its borders effectively. Also, situation with Afghanistan has been quite fragile for last few months. So we need strong defense and strong security arrangement, and particularly what's happening in the region. I think we probably need to invest more
300 books
into the security apparatus
in 1 year.
Time also reduce
God love you, man.
Unnecessary, the expenditure.
That's crazy.
And also, I think we need to take.
How do you find time to read 300 books?
That's another part of the equation which we need to address.
How many books would you read like per week to get that?
And there should not be any sort of
oh, not 1 year. Okay.
No special treatment, no exemptions available to any attached companies.
Michael, you must have a view on that as well. I mean, okay, sure, we've got per capita perhaps a military budget falling, but that's only down to the exploding population.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this issue of defense spending, impact on the broader economy has been a point of discussion and one of significant controversy for quite some time. Because, as you know, Pakistan's military is the most powerful entity, I would argue, in Pakistan, and oftentimes it's difficult to push back against concerns about that high level.
Yeah, it's the most powerful entity here too.
Spending. Indeed, it is true, as was noted before.
Ain't working out too well for us.
Facing a very challenging security situation. I mentioned the resurgence of terrorism. We've also heard about its hot border with India, and it is involved in a forgotten conflict with the Taliban in Afghanistan as we speak. The border with Iran is, under the best of times, tense because of a number of insurgent groups that are based on both sides of the border, and that border definitely could become even more volatile with the conflict in Iran. So I can understand the justification for significant amounts of defense spending. But indeed, there is a hidden economy within the military, and there's been a fair amount of scholarship done on this. The military exerts significant amounts of influence over many, many economic sectors. It has its own industries and its own empire, I would argue. So it is a very controversial matter. But, I would point this out. I think it's important to look at silver linings here as well, that we talk about Pakistan being very vulnerable, which it is, but I would argue that if you look at some of its neighbors, Bangladesh is actually very close to
Right,
running
Ryan?
out of fuel imports, more so than Pakistan.
And I'm old.
India has been dealing with an
I've seen a
LPG
lot.
crisis, which is a key source of cooking oil for several hundred million families there. So as bad as things are for Pakistan, this is something that's not
I'm old
unique
enough to remember
Pakistan, and a
Vietnam
number of
and
its neighbors
Nixon
are
and
facing similar challenges.
oil
With
embargoes
this
and
Middle East conflict continuing,
getting gas on certain days,
and,
depending on the last number of
economy
your
taking a
license
hit,
plate.
Kaiser, what are the social implications of this solution, of this situation?
I think we have had very high levels of extreme poverty over 2 decades plus. I work on this subject, and we do household
So just
surveys.
some light reading there, War is
Some
Peace,
out
right?
are really very painful.
You blow
they are
right
going
through
to get
those.
more and more painful now. There are female domestic workers who don't take public transport anymore. They walk an hour to get to work. There are families. There was one family where the mother said, "My children don't know what is the taste of eggs is, because we've never had eggs in our house." So, and this will
Eggs
worsen.
suck.
And there is a phenomena of kind of a middle class poverty emerging. There's someone who has a car in the house, but no salary, no income, so not even money for a bus fare. This kind of situation is becoming very, very rampant.
Yep. So
I think it's been on a slow
what's your
decline,
take on
Ryan,
the social
unfortunately.
implications of what's happening, and
I
how it's
often wondered
affecting
when
the
I was a
country?
kid in high school how long the empire would last, right? Because they all die at some point.
Like 2 points here. One
I mean,
is
ours
that
would die in record time, man, a couple hundred years,
government
but
is facing the fuel crisis.
it's possible.
Last month,
Unfortunately.
it announced that the school closures.
Another
and we
reason
have
I'm getting my
seen,
Social Security next year as soon as I'm
loss in
eligible.
education during
I'm
the
going to get that
COVID
government
periods.
check rolling in
And
before this whole thing just
afraid
craps
that
out and
any
goes belly up.
significant crisis should not hit the education sector.
Books by Henry
Because
Ford, huh?
online
All
education
right.
is a luxury which is only available in urban parts of Pakistan and not in the rural areas. The government documents that about 25 million children who should be in the schools are out of schools. So continued crisis, and if the government in the future decides to shift the schools to online, it will be a significant social cost. And similarly, I think the mobility will be a concern because of rising,
You guys seem a little too educated to be here.
And lastly, I would add that we are just
I appreciate that you're
entering
here,
the wheat
but
harvest season. And during this season, diesel becomes extremely important factor, supply of diesel and the cost of diesel for farmers. And that's where we have not seen, I think, more attention from the government. They are announcing subsidies for the farmers, but any direct impact at this point in time, because wheat is the staple food in Pakistan, there is a risk of an increase in the price.
Michael, final one to you here. Can you leave us with some positives, if possible, that you're looking at Pakistan and you do see some...
You want a positive? Trump will be dead soon. There's a positive.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the big success stories that Pakistan has seen over the last few years is the embrace
Just breezing
of
through,
solar
huh,
power.
NPC?
This goes back to the immediate period after the Russian invasion of Ukraine, when energy prices got very high, and significant numbers of Pakistani households and companies began to get solar panels. And we've seen these used to a significant extent, to the point that I think that it's been able to become a bit of a cushion to the blow of these high energy prices. This is not a government policy. This is not a case of the government going green, but it's really a grassroots effort on the part of many Pakistanis to simply opt for the cheapest source of energy. And so as a result, many Pakistanis now are embracing solar powers and solar panels. And hopefully that could build into something bigger. But I think for now, that's a nice silver lining that perhaps we could.
If we fall, a lot of shit's going to fall.
All right. And actually, final one there to you, Kaiser. Any optimism, very quickly?
Yes, I think Michael is correct. I think solar power is certainly a silver lining. The other is that, Pakistanis have lived with crisis for the last half a century, all kinds of crises, and we've learned how to cope and how to adjust. And I think the people, even the poor, will somehow learn to cope and adjust and try and keep their head above water. And once this particular crisis is over, and we hope that it is over soon, we will be, the people, the poor, will be able to start building their lives, rebuilding their lives again.
Oh, thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us. Thanks to our guests, Kaiser Bengali, Ali Salman, and Michael Kugelman. And thank you for watching too. You can see the program again anytime by visiting our website, aljazeera.com. And for further discussion, go to our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/AJ Inside Story. You can also join the conversation on X. Our handle is AJ Inside Story. That is it.
That would be pretty cool, right?
And from the whole team here in Doha. Do stay with us for more coverage of the war between the United States, Israel, and Iran coming up in just a moment.
It's great for ratings. War is great for ratings. All right, guys, we're going to do one more hour. Thank you all for showing up tonight, and please remember to like and subscribe. Much love to all of you. Thank you if you've already subscribed. I really appreciate it. I'll be right back.
Al Jazeera's correspondents are on the ground.
This is the first time that President Trump has spoken publicly live.
We projected 4 to 5 weeks.
All the while insisting that the United States has plenty of weapons left.
We have only just begun.
Still, he's not ruling out sending U.S. troops into Iran.
We expect to take additional losses.
Today we grieve for the 4 heroic American service members who have been killed in action.
That is a price Americans say they do not want repeated.
Stay with Al Jazeera for the latest developments. Hearing the facts.
A busy day for Iran today could mean when Iran retaliates, it will be a busy day for cities in the Gulf.
With the latest global news and insightful documentaries, Al Jazeera's teams across the world bring you closer to the heart of the story.
It's 0000 GMT. This is Al Jazeera live from Doha with our continuing coverage of the war between the U.S., Israel, and Iran. I'm Mohammed Jamjoom. Coming up, Donald Trump says the U.S. will step up attacks if a deal isn't reached in 48 hours. Tehran has rejected the threat.
Paco's going to strike again.
Inside one of the rooms of the ground floor of this hospital, and the damage obviously extends to other parts like this one.
Hospitals and universities are hit in U.S.-Israeli airstrikes. We report from the scene of those attacks in
Pete
Tehran.
Kegsbrith.
U.S. and Iranian forces search for an American crew member who's still missing after a warplane was shot down over Iran on Friday. And Italy's prime minister visits Qatar.
Every day is Taco Tuesday.
Impact on Europe's energy supply.
Oh. I mean, it's got to be late in Britain, man. What are you guys, like 4 or 5 hours ahead of us here on the East Coast?
Doesn't open the Strait of Hormuz by
What, it's like midnight?
On social media,
or whatever you guys call it?
Has said,
you guys call it midnight?
Gave Iran 10 days to make
That's how
a deal
stupid
or
I
open
am.
up the Hormuz Strait. Time is running out. 48
Yeah,
hours
yeah.
before
Time's
all
always
hell
running
will
out.
rain down
Blah, blah, blah. He spelled rain wrong. He spelled rain wrong.
A military spokesman said Iran would respond without limitation against U.S.
Moron.
and Israeli targets if Trump followed through.
It's 1 a.m.
In Iran, the search for a missing U.S. weapons officer is about to enter.
So you're a night owl, huh?
The F-15 jet the crew member was in was shot down over the southwest of the country on Friday.
I wouldn't exactly call him functioning.
Live in Amman, Doha, Beirut, and Tehran, and that's where we start with Mohammed Val in the Iranian capital.
I speak your
How
language.
are Iranian officials
I'm here to please,
reacting
man.
to these latest threats from Donald Trump?
Well, Mohammed, they've been talking about this for days.
since the beginning of the since the day Donald Trump first issued that threat.
Trump had a Truth Social post just a little while ago, maybe an hour or so ago, saying we bombed them and killed a bunch of their leaders again. I don't know if it's true.
Ready for it, and I have just this couple of statements.
You have to go by what Trump says.
In this regard, the Major General Ali Abdullahi, commander of the Khatam al-Anbiya Central Headquarters, responding to Trump's threat. If the American Zionist enemy carries out any aggression, we will without limitation subject all the infrastructure used by the U.S. terrorist army as well as the infrastructures of the Zionist regime to continuous and devastating attacks. Also, the spokesman of the same Khatam al-Anbiya headquarters said, "Do not forget that if your aggression expands, the entire region will turn into a hell for you. The mirage of defeating the Islamic Republic of Iran has
Who's
turned
barely
into a
coherent?
swamp
Me?
in which you are sinking." So that's the type of rhetoric here in Iran. They say that the threat has already been executed to some extent. They have been striking at petrochemical companies and also power grids over the last few days. And what they are expecting is more of that on a wider scale. And they say they are ready for it. They say Iran has now proved that it is still capable of defending itself and also inflicting the same level and type of pain on
Got down 2 jets.
And Mohammed, let me also
So
ask you,
defenses are still working, I guess.
Currently in Iran, when it comes to the search for the crew member from that downed U.S. fighter jet.
This poor guy.
Yeah, there was some silence and lack of clarity over the last couple of days or even 3 days. But now we are hearing reports of some activity in that area of Kogiluye, particularly in Dehdasht. That's a city where an airstrike was conducted there, targeting a broadcasting tower, but also in the vicinity of that place. 4 people were killed and 1 was injured. The understanding there is that there is a fresh attempt by the Americans to try to find that pilot. And in that process, they are killing people. We don't know why. The local rumors say that they are trying to pinpoint some places where they think the pilot is located and probably kill him before he's apprehended and captured by the Iranians. And also there is a lot of activity by people trying themselves to find this pilot, because the authorities over the last few days they have asked people to help in that search, and they talked about a reward for people who can find him. So there is a lot of activity going on. That's just an hour ago in that area.
They could use this guy as a huge bargaining chip if they find him. Huge.
The result yet, whether this has led to finding the pilot.
All right, that's Al Jazeera's Mohammed Val live
Yeah,
for us.
I know, right, Ward? I mean, come on. Obliterated,
Meanwhile, in the
decimated.
US,
He doesn't know what
there's
those
been
words
little
mean.
official reaction to the search for the missing
In his
crew
defense,
member.
he's
Al
stupid,
Jazeera's Mike
so,
Hanna
yeah.
reports from Washington, D.C.
Neither the White House nor the Pentagon have commented on these ongoing search operations for the crewman who was brought down by Iranian air defenses. And there's also been no explanation from the Pentagon or indeed the White House as to why, just days after they claimed that Iranian air defenses had been obliterated, you have U.S. aircraft being shot down by the self-same air defenses. So this is a major problem for President Trump. Certainly there's going to be a public reaction as the saga continues. While the search continues for the missing crew member, the fact that U.S. aircraft were shot down in skies that the U.S. insisted it had complete control over is something deeply concerning to many Americans and probably to the White House as well.
Well, let's take a closer look at the fighter jet that Iran says it shot down. The first model of the U.S. F-15E Strike Eagle fighter was delivered in 1988. It's a dual-role fighter jet. That means it can conduct air-to-air combat and ground attack missions. The plane has 2 crew members, a pilot.
Ryan, you're 100% correct. Well, we're not being told the truth by our government, by Hegseth, about the real death toll, civilian or military.
Patrick Bouri is a
They're lying to us.
security specialist at the University of Bath and a former British Army officer. He says the missing officer is likely trained to survive in difficult and hostile conditions.
They'll definitely protect the pilot, for sure. They're not going to execute him. That would be a big no-no. But they can use him as a bargaining chip, for sure.
obviously, the search and rescue teams are really well prepared for this. They have numerous of assets they can bring to it. As we've seen from the pictures being released on.
Well, I know you're looking for the 47 years ago, you know, they declared war on us, but that's bullshit, man. I mean, what they did, taking the hostages, was completely wrong. Having said that, we haven't actually been at war with them for this whole time. This is Trump's war. This is Trump's war of choice.
The whole package they can put together is really good, but you've also got this element, and of course the pilots are trained in specialist survival, evasion, SERE, survival, evasion, resistance and escape techniques, so that they know the whole package too. And obviously this is a likely thing to happen in a long air campaign. We've seen it in previous wars, but to say the actual probability of
Maurice, that's just rhetoric though, man. This is shit you can ignore, you know? Like,
where they've landed geographically,
they declared, the supreme leader declared war on us. Who cares?
Who are on side inside the regime, with you know, in terms of
I don't have to Google anything, Maurice.
Whether the pilot is able to buy off the actual locals with, you know, cash.
And Hitler declared war on the United States after Japan attacked Pearl Harbor.
So there's too many variables.
What's your point?
To say the probability of this. What I would say is the longer it goes on, probably the less likely it is.
Russia's state nuclear company has evacuated another 200 staff from
the fact is, this is Trump's war that he started for no reason.
Iran was attacked for a fourth time since the start of the war. The strike hit the perimeter, killing one person. Initial assessments show no sign of damage to the plant's main units, but Iran's Atomic Energy Agency has warned of a potential nuclear accident. And Iran's foreign minister, Abbas
Eric, you're back.
warned on Saturday that radioactive fallout from an accident would, in his words, end life in Gulf capital cities. Alan Ayer is a distinguished diplomatic fellow with the Middle East Institute. He's also a former senior diplomat on the U.S. negotiating team for the 2015 JCPOA Iran nuclear deal. And he
maybe, Ryan, maybe.
In the Gulf should be
yeah, Bibi did start it. That's true too. Yeah.
It's a terror.
We got our marching orders. Rubio even admitted it.
Some sort of nuclear catastrophe or spillage in Bushehr, the Gulf countries on the other side of the Persian Gulf are going to be the first ones to suffer, both in terms of ambient radiation and also in terms of radiation in the water, which will affect their desalination abilities. The prevailing wind patterns and tidal patterns in the Persian Gulf are such that, and the fact that there's a mountain between the Iranian coast and the interior of the country, means that dispersal would be far more likely to go westward across the Persian Gulf. Now, studies and academic scholarly studies have shown that the concentration of radioactive material that went westward might not be sufficient to imperil life a la Chernobyl, but more serious is the threat of radionuclides, radioactive material.
Another war crime committed by us and Bibi.
An appreciable amount of radioactivity in the water.
Let's just keep blowing up nuclear sites. It sounds like a great idea.
And as we know, the Gulf countries rely almost exclusively on desalination plants to get their water.
U.S. and Israeli forces have launched strikes on a university and a hospital in northern Tehran. Iran's science minister has told Al Jazeera more than 30 universities have been targeted across the country since
it's the one thing Bibi can get a hard on for nowadays.
Tehran has threatened to retaliate with attacks on U.S.-affiliated schools in the region. Tawhid Asadi went to the scene of the latest strikes and has this report.
And here we are in the northern areas of the Iranian capital at the campus of Shahid Beheshti University.
Obama did not send $150 billion. Do your research. There were no dollars involved.
Hit the university in Tehran, badly damaging those facilities. It's not the first to be targeted. Earlier this week, attacks struck the Iran University of Science and Technology. Last month, one of his faculty members was killed at home, along with his two children.
Who is benefiting? Alpha.
Science, Research and Technology told
it's not the American. It's not the average American. It's not the average European. It's not the average person around the world.
More than 60 universities.
Trump and Bibi have thrown the entire world into chaos.
This not only brings international responsibility, but will also forever tarnish humanity's memory of the aggressors. Humanity will never
Stop,
forget
Eric.
that the US, with all its claims
Eric,
of upholding
subscribe.
human rights, has now targeted knowledge and scholars.
Eric, if you don't subscribe in the next 60 seconds, I'm going to ban you from the channel. Your call.
Weeks, the scope of those strikes has expanded as the US and Israel increasingly attack civilian infrastructure.
Hey, Jeb, who put the plan in place for the Afghan withdrawal?
Area was targeted, and this building, a hospital, was severely impacted. A US-Israeli attack
Was not
hit
dollars.
this area last weekend. It destroyed the market that was here. Across the street, the force of explosion also caused extensive damage to Del
Yeah, in cash,
hospital.
not American dollars.
management
And why
says
did he do
it
it?
has
Why
been
did Obama send that
impossible for
money?
them to continue caring for patients.
Don't get it wrong.
The blast from the airstrike on the street outside caused serious damage to the hospital. Most of our patients have mental health conditions, and a calm environment is essential for their care.
Inside the hospital, the extent of the destruction is even more apparent. This is shrapnel inside one of the rooms of the ground floor of this hospital, and the damage obviously extends to other parts like this one. According to Iran's Ministry of Health, more than 350 health centers have been damaged since the start of the war. And the Red Crescent says at least 18 of its facilities have been damaged, as well as dozens of pharmaceutical sites. That includes Pasteur Institute of Iran, a century-old vaccine production hub. And as the US threatens to target more civilian facilities such as power plants and bridges, people in Iran are being left to cope with the consequences. Toida Sadi, Al Jazeera, Tehran.
It's not just universities being hit, as you saw there. Iran's ports, energy, and water facilities have also been targeted in U.S.-Israeli strikes over several weeks. Damage to these sites has major implications for Iranian civilians and the country's economy. Julie Dager takes a look.
Correct. It was Iran's money.
Satellite images
Yes.
show evidence of the damage U.S. and Israeli
That an
attacks
international
have done to
court
Iran's
said that they had to be paid. And it was paid in multiple currencies, none of which were American dollars.
These are before and after satellite images, and in them you can see the sites have sustained significant damage. The port is vital to Iran's economy as it handles more than 3 million tons of cargo each year. Bushehr is also home to Iran's only operating nuclear power plant. Several attacks have targeted the vicinity, but Iran says there's been no
Exit and
damage.
Trump are
A port on
brilliant.
Keshem
Look at
Island
this.
has also
Look at this.
been hit. It's located in the
You're going to hit a
Strait of Hormuz,
nuclear
critical
facility.
chokepoint for
How
global
fucking
shipping.
stupid are you?
Satellite images show some of the port's infrastructure has been damaged.
We did have to pay them,
also
Len.
hosts a
You're
major
out of here,
desalination
man.
plant,
You
which
don't know what you're
Iran
talking
says
about.
has been attacked. It supplies drinking
Bye-bye.
water to about 30 villages. US forces have conducted major military strikes on Iran's Karg Island, which processes about 90% of Iran's crude oil exports. Again, the satellite images show some of these military sites hit have sustained damage. Now, these attacks did not target oil infrastructure, but Trump has threatened more strikes. The US and Israel have also hit oil depots and refineries in and around the capital. That includes the Agdassia oil warehouse, a major fuel storage and distribution facility.
It's a
The attack sent large plumes of smoke across Tehran.
You're
releasing
already
toxic
strangling the world's oil
substances into the
supply.
air.
You've taken 20% of it offline, and now you're bombing more of it? What do you think that's going to do to oil prices around the world and gas prices that we pay at the pump?
In an attack on the Mashar petrochemical zone.
Trump is a stable genius.
I promised you that we will continue to crush the terror regime in Tehran, and that is exactly
Okay.
what we are doing. After we
Someone needs to
destroyed
walk up behind him
70%
and put a
of
bullet
their
in his head.
capacity, which serves them as raw material for the weapons against us. Today we attacked their petrochemical plants.
It serves
These
as
two things
raw
are the
material
main
for them to
machine
survive
financed the war of
as
terror
a
against us
civilization.
and against the whole world. We will continue to crush them, as I promised.
I hope they
Trump and
level
Netanyahu's
Israel.
threats to hit energy
Level.
sites have raised questions over whether those attacks would constitute
He is a
war
monster, a
crimes,
complete
as energy
monster.
is civilian
And
infrastructure.
it is war crimes.
Stephen Rapp is a former ambassador at large for war crimes issues under the U.S. State Department. He says both sides of the Iran conflict could face accusations of breaching international law.
Correct.
My focus
But we
has
expect
often
it
been
from
war
them.
crimes, which are crimes
We
committed once the
should be
war
above it.
started. And it's important to note that the law applies to both sides. Whoever is right or wrong in starting the war, it doesn't make any difference. It's a crime if it's committed by Iran to attack universities, for instance, in the Gulf, to attack oil facilities that et cetera, are not being used. None of the oil from those facilities is being used in the war. So those are illegitimate targets. The law applies to both sides as far as war crimes is concerned. When it comes to starting the war, however, as the 100 experts clearly note, there was no justification for starting the war. The only justification can be self-defense, and that requires an imminent threat of attack. The prospect that Iran could sometimes have nuclear weapons does not justify an attack, without the permission of the UN Security Council. At the moment, for instance, other countries may have the right of self-defense regarding the Straits of Hormuz, for instance, if their livelihood is being threatened. I should note, though obviously always better to go to the Security Council. But as far as starting this conflict, that was a crime in the same way that the Russian attack on Ukraine is a crime. And we have now an international court that's going to be established in
Yeah,
Europe.
well, who's going to back Israel, Brian?
Russian leaders
We
for
leave.
crime, and certainly
Netanyahu's on his own.
well in this situation.
My greatest ally
has
ever.
announced
Yeah.
it carried out a joint long-range attack on Israel alongside Iranian and Hezbollah forces. It says it fired a ballistic missile targeting Lod Airport in the Jaffa area and key military targets.
The Yemeni armed forces, with God's help, carried out their fifth military operation, using a fissile ballistic missile and several drones targeting Lod Airport in the Jaffa area and vital military targets belonging to the Israeli enemy in southern occupied Palestine. This operation was conducted jointly with the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the Iranian army, and Hezbollah in Lebanon, and it successfully achieved its objectives.
Separately, hundreds of people took to the streets in Israel to demand an end to the war in Iran. Protesters gathered in Tel Aviv's main square, as well as in several major cities, including Jerusalem and Haifa. Demonstrations are held every Saturday against the Netanyahu government. Well, Rob McBride joins us now live from the Jordanian capital, Amman. Rob, Israel has been coming under attack from Iran, from Hezbollah, and from the Houthis in Yemen. Meanwhile, we've heard an Israeli official saying that they're ready to hit Iranian energy facilities and that they're just waiting for the green light from the U.S. What else are you learning about all this?
Yes, it does appear as though security and defense officials in Israel have been widely briefing media outlets there just about what the next phase of the air campaign by Israel with their U.S. partners against Iran might look like, with this common focus now on energy infrastructure, with the targeting potentially of power plants.
Or don't worry about Israel's defense industry being heavily in debt.
With the
We'll bail them
the
out.
military, the Air Force in Israel, indicating that they would be ready to go within a matter of days, very much in line with US plans. In fact, it puts them pretty much in sync with this ultimatum issued by US President Donald Trump of 48 hours notice before this would all begin. Meanwhile, as we've seen there, the Prime Minister Netanyahu has on Saturday issued a video statement just outlining where the current airstrikes against Iran are up to, which have been broadened, as we know, in the past week or so to more general infrastructure, weakening the whole country, not just going for military and regime targets, but going for things like dual-use industries, as they're called, which can have applications for both civilian and military use, such as the steel industry, with Netanyahu claiming that they've destroyed around 3/4 of steel-making capacity in Iran, the steel that he says were used for armaments. Similarly, for the petrochemical industry, which he says materials from that can be used in ballistic missile production, is now being targeted. And in fact, it's one of those missiles which was just over an hour ago intercepted over the southern city of Beersheba, the latest strike from Iran.
And Rob, as all this is going on, Israel is also intensifying its invasion of the south of Lebanon. What's the messaging been like from the Israeli government to members of the public when it comes to this occupation?
Yeah, it is looking increasingly likely that this occupation will become permanent or semi-permanent, with many hawkish figures in Israel and even some of those hawkish figures inside the current coalition government calling for the Litani River way up inside Lebanon to become Israel's new northern border. Now, there have been precedents for this. There have been incursions over the years by Israeli forces in their ongoing conflicts, mainly with Hezbollah. At the end of the last century, for around 18 years, a buffer zone was there with an Israeli occupation. The difference this time, of course, is we are seeing the wholesale relocation of people from the areas of southern Lebanon that they are currently occupying. Meanwhile, it does appear as though the authorities are trying to prepare the public for tougher fighting ahead, and also maybe give justification for their occupation by explaining the threat that Hezbollah still poses, that it has currently the rockets, it says, to fire off around 200 rockets per day across the border into northern Israel, a rocket campaign that it says could last for 5 months. Mohammed?
All right, that's Al Jazeera's Rob McBride joining us from the Jordanian capital, Amman. Thanks so much, Rob. Indonesia has received the bodies of 3 UN peacekeepers who were killed in southern Lebanon. 2 died last Monday when a blast hit a UN convoy. The third was killed the previous day by suspected Israeli tank fire. President Prabowo Subianto joined families to pay tribute to the soldiers at a ceremony in Jakarta. It comes a day after 3 other peacekeepers were wounded in a blast at a UN facility in Lebanon. Israeli forces have pounded the southern suburb of Lebanon's capital. This is the aftermath from drone attacks that injured at least 11 people. The army says it was targeting Hezbollah infrastructure. Dozens of homes were hit in the strikes. And Israel has also attacked the Lebanese city of Tyre as it expands its ground invasion of the south.
We are the
A hospital was
colonizers,
damaged by
Ryan.
airstrikes on nearby buildings. A port near the harbor and several boats were also bombed. At least 6 people were killed and over a dozen injured in both attacks.
The Samson option? The nukes?
Hito reports from the
I don't think so, but everything is crazy now because we're being led by lunatics, NBC, so
last night's airstrikes that targeted the city
you can't say it's off the table completely.
strikes,
In normal times, you would say, no, we're never going to nuke anybody. Now?
The damage was actually
Who
in
knows?
a very nearby neighborhood where completely destroyed buildings remain. And we spoke to the hospital manager, and this is what he had to say.
The hospital hasn't been directly threatened so far, but the strikes, they were really close. This has caused a sense of panic and fear, but everyone working here will continue to fulfill their humanitarian duty.
The Israeli enemy doesn't only target humans, it targets the rocks too. The Israeli pressure is meant to make us give up. We say to the international community, to the world, to the UN and to global powers that they can clearly see what Israel is doing to our country and in the south. Israel is the attacker, not Lebanon.
Smoke bellowing from this scene of mass destruction here in the city of Tyre, a result of overnight strikes by Israeli aircraft. The locals here are telling us that 4 missiles struck this neighborhood, causing extensive damage to these residential buildings. As you can see, this home being completely destroyed. It's still flaming there. You see the smoke rising out of the building. Just down the road, there was another residential building that was completely decimated, as well as damage from shrapnel to the hospital just a few blocks away. These are scenes that Lebanese people are experiencing every day now for more than a month as Israeli attacks in Lebanon intensify. There's over 1 million Lebanese people displaced from their homes because of attacks like this. However, these attacks continue to escalate, and that is a huge concern for hundreds of thousands of people who have been forcefully displaced from their homes in the south, and Israel is threatening to occupy and destroy their homes and not allow any of them to return. Obaida Hito, Al Jazeera, Tyre, Lebanon.
Well, let's cross live now to Heidi Pett, who's standing by for us in Beirut. Heidi, Israel has invaded the south and has been striking Beirut and the city of Tyre. Now, Israeli forces appear to be targeting a border crossing with Syria. What more can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so a few hours ago, the Israeli military put out a statement saying that they were going to target the Masna border crossing. That is the main route between Lebanon and Syria. It's the main border crossing in the region. It's used by thousands of people every day. Israel says that the reason it's going to hit that border crossing is that Hezbollah is using it for military purposes and to smuggle weapons.
Sure.
On the Syrian side,
Meanwhile, Israel's
that,
using everything
said,
for military
this is a
purposes.
Civilian crossing, that no militias are able to operate in that area. It has been evacuated. I was speaking to a source in the Lebanese Customs Department who confirmed that, yes, the border has been closed. It's been evacuated. But in terms of the impact on the civilian population here in Lebanon, it will be huge. It's not just civilians crossing back and forth. It's a key point for goods crossing between the two countries, including humanitarian goods. And there have been hundreds of trucks actually parked at that border crossing over the last couple of months because Syria has changed its import policies and it's introduced some delays at the border there. So all of those hundreds of trucks and the drivers who are sometimes sleeping in there for about a week have had to be moved out and evacuated. This
Sorry to hear that,
a
War.
significant escalation in Israel's
That is horrible.
targeting of civilian
Absolutely
infrastructure
terrible.
here in Lebanon. They've been systematically destroying bridges across the Litani River in the last couple of weeks, isolating southern Lebanon from the rest of the country. But this represents a new step, isolating Lebanon from its neighbors.
Heidi, I want to ask you a bit more about what's going on in southern Lebanon. There's also this question of UN peacekeeping forces. That outfit is known as UNIFIL. They monitor the border between Lebanon and Israel. They've done so for decades. 3 peacekeepers were killed recently. Where do things stand now?
Yeah, I mean, as you were just reporting earlier, so 3 peacekeepers, they're all Indonesian, who were killed in 2 separate incidents earlier this week, have been returned home. They are not the only peacekeepers who have been targeted since this war reignited about a month ago. There's been numerous incidents where peacekeepers from around the world have been injured and indeed killed in southern Lebanon. One of those incidents was Israeli tank fire that injured 3 Ghanaian peacekeepers. Now, UNIFIL did its own investigation into that, concluded that Israel was responsible. Israel then admitted to that and said that the tank fire was a mistake. There have been other incidents where projectiles have landed inside UNIFIL bases, and they have assessed that to have come from a non-state actor, that is Hezbollah. But what has happened in the last 24 hours is that Israeli troops who have been operating in the town of Naura, which is where the UNIFIL headquarters are, it's a coastal town very close down by the Israeli border on the Mediterranean coast of Lebanon. They've been in there operating their tanks. They've been detonating houses for the last week. And what they have done is destroyed more than 20 CCTV cameras around the UNIFIL base. Now, UNIFIL has protested that. They said they'll launch a formal objection, and they've reminded Israel of its duty to protect peacekeepers and ensure their safety. And they've also stressed that those CCTV cameras, they weren't looking out on the town. They were just around the perimeter
Convenient
of the base
mistake.
in order to keep their people safe.
Yeah.
What this does is it means that if there is any other incoming fire on that position, it
Yeah,
makes it a
Ryan,
lot
I
harder
agree.
for them to assess where it has come from to perform any kind of
They're just
investigation.
wandering into
And what
another
we've
country. We're going to
seen
take this
in
land.
The pattern with these attacks
Get out of your
actually
house.
is
We're going to
that
blow it up.
when
The
UNIFIL is
fuck?
taking its time to conduct a full and proper investigation into some of these incidents,
Unbelievable.
Israeli military spokespeople jump
The
into the
shit that
breach. They have
Netanyahu gets
assigned
away
blame
with
for
is
one specific
insane.
incident to Hezbollah,
And Trump.
while
Insane.
UNIFIL is still conducting its investigation. And so what this does, it makes
This
it
is
a
the
lot
new
harder
normal
for
in
them
our
to
world?
assess where this
Come
fire
on.
is coming from and to make any kind of concrete conclusions about it if it
Mm.
happens again.
True.
All right, that's Heidi Pett, live for us with all the latest in Beirut. Thanks so much, Heidi. The renewed threat on Iran's energy facilities by President Trump raises concerns for Gulf nations caught in the crossfire of the U.S.-Israeli war on Iran. Italy has been calling for a humanitarian corridor for fertilizer and other essentials through the Strait of Hormuz. Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni is on a trip to Gulf countries to shore up ties and bolster energy supplies.
Show me my girl
Saturday,
again.
was
There
in
she
Qatar,
is.
a day after visiting Saudi Arabia. Meloni is the first EU and NATO leader to visit the region since the start of the Iran war. Italy is highly dependent on imported natural gas. Qatar accounts for a third of Italy's LNG imports. Meloni met the Qatari Emir, Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, to discuss the energy crisis. Here's what she had to say about the visit.
Clearly, it is not a symbolic visit.
Of course, what we wanted to give is also a message of solidarity towards nations that are partners, that are friends,
Yes,
and
he
that
is,
continue
Ryan.
to suffer unjustified attacks from Iran. But our goal was not simply to bear witness. It was and it is to lend a hand to address the problems and thus be able to better defend Italian national interests. The Gulf is a fundamental actor in the global energy market and more. If production or transit here contracts or even stops, the price increases for everyone. And if it worsens, we can reach the point of not having all the energy that is necessary, even in Italy.
And on the same day, Giorgia Meloni was speaking with Gulf leaders about oil and gas. The energy crisis back in Italy has
How old
forced
is
the
Giorgia
aviation industry
Meloni?
there to scale back operations. Airports across the north, including Milan and Venice, are now facing fuel restrictions. The Italian
49.
branch of
Yeah,
Air
a
BP,
little young
one
for
of the
me,
world's
but
leading
that's all right.
suppliers of aviation fuel, has begun rationing distribution. Measures are expected to last until April 9th. U.S. federal agents have detained late Iranian military commander Qasem Soleimani's niece and her daughter. It follows a decision by U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio to revoke their lawful permanent residence
Clown
status.
shoes.
The U.S. State Department is accusing Hamideh Soleimani Afshar of supporting Iran's government.
Oh,
Qasem
no.
Soleimani was killed in 2020 by a U.S. airstrike in Baghdad during President Trump's first term. You're watching Al Jazeera. Here's a reminder of our top
What
stories
a
this
joke.
hour. Donald Trump says Iran has less than 48 hours left to open up the Strait of Hormuz. In a social media
Half
post,
hour
the
left,
US
guys, and I'm
president has
calling
said
it a
all
night.
hell would rain down
And I'll be
on
back
Iran
on
if it didn't comply.
Monday
The
afternoon,
search for the missing U.S. airman
about 1
whose
o'clock,
fighter
I
jet
think.
was shot down
Like and
over
subscribe.
Iran on Friday
You get the
is entering
notifications.
its third day. Meanwhile, there's been little reaction from Washington for the missing crew member. Russia's state nuclear company has evacuated another 200 staff from Iran's Bushehr nuclear power plant. Earlier, the facility in southern Iran was attacked for a fourth time since the start of the war. One person has been killed. Well, let's bring you back to one of our other top stories this hour and the search for the weapons officer from the U.S. F-15 jet. It's now been more than 24 hours since that news broke, and there's been no indication from either Washington or Tehran.
Yeah, I know,
as to the
Ryan.
location or
She's
welfare of
supposedly
that
on the
airman.
right.
Both sides
I
are
don't care.
trying
She's
to
hot.
track
I
him
mean, in
down.
my eyes,
Earlier,
my old
colleague
eyes,
Rob Matheson
she's pretty
spoke
hot.
to Alexandra Volhevier, a specialist in security and defense policy, and Thomas Ward.
I'm weird.
He's a former U.S. Department of Homeland Security Deputy Assistant Secretary for Counterterrorism Policy. Rob began by asking them about the state of defense systems being used by Iran.
Iran has a very sophisticated, very diverse supply of different.
Yeah, connecting.
kinds
I don't know
of
anything
air
about
defense
like
systems.
Italy, and
Some
you're saying
of,
she destroyed
this
it. Maybe,
inventory is
maybe, but
1960s vintage.
I don't
Some
know.
of it actually was
I just
purchased
I
in the
like it.
United States of America.
I don't like her
The old,
politics, but you know what I mean.
medium-range Hawk missiles are still being used, sometimes heavily modified. So some of this inventory is very, very old. And another segment of this inventory is extremely recent, coming from China or having been supplemented or improved with Chinese technology, and is essentially untried. This has never been used before. And so there is no centralized air defense war that is being waged by Iran today, but all of these different systems are coming on the air, they're coming live, and when they see something, they're definitely going to try and shoot it down.
There's been a lot of speculation, of course, about what assessments or interpretations the Trump White House made about the kind of response that Iran was going to give when it was attacked by Israel and by the US. In your experience, did the US and intelligence analysts just get their estimates of Iran's defenses wrong, or did they get it right, and were they ignored?
It's almost certain that they got it right, because the assessments are based on capabilities of technical systems that are well known. As Alexandra just said, much of Iran's air defenses are based on technology acquired during the time of the Shah, which was 48 years ago. And so
Got down an A-10 and an F-15.
and the ability of Iran for instance, to close the Strait of Hormuz. Last night, I actually
War is never
looked
right,
up
man.
An old CIA
Alpha,
assessment,
in today's
generally
world,
classified, made
2026,
during the Iran-Iraq war,
we shouldn't be doing this
in
anymore.
which Iran's then Speaker of the Majlis, Ali Akbar Hassami Rafsanjani, talked about Iran's control of the Strait of Hormuz being more powerful than a nuclear weapon.
Alexander, let's talk about the missing airmen. If Iran captures this downed U.S. airmen, how could it use that leverage?
We have experiences that go very far. World War II, Vietnam, Korea. So definitely the use of this can be made for propaganda purposes and to try and leverage or broker a deal. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. But so far, the attempts to secure this military personnel have not been successful for Iran.
The normal practice is to exchange prisoners of war when hostilities end. Obviously, that's up to the political leaderships on both sides. We have also seen in the Russia-Ukraine war prisoners exchanges even during the middle of wars. This is also a frequent occurrence. And so I anticipate you will see a lot of these things kicked in, but it would be remembered that Vietnam held hundreds of Americans as prisoners of war during the Vietnam War, and that alone did not change the direction or indeed the outcome of the war in any material way. And I actually think that's what's going to happen here if this pilot is not rescued, as we obviously know efforts are underway to do that.
So we're going to lose the war.
Crossing on the Iran-Iraq border has
Lost
reopened
Vietnam.
after it was forced to close following an airstrike. At least one person was killed when the attack hit the Iranian side of the Shalamcheh crossing. 5 others were seriously injured. It's one of Iraq's main routes for imports of Iranian vegetables and other food supplies.
Jesus.
2 foreign oil plants in Iraq have been hit by drone strikes. One attack started a large fire at a facility west of the port.
It may be, Ryan. Great song, though. Great band.
North Rumelia,
Land of Georgia.
Southern Iraq. 3 Iraqi workers were injured, but officials say the facility's operations were not affected.
I'm more partial to driving and crying.
People gathered in the Iraqi capital, Baghdad, to
Blackberry
denounce
smoke.
U.S. and Israeli military activity in the region. Iraqi politician and cleric Muqtada al-Sadr called for the demonstrations. Protesters say they want peace. U.S. assets in Iraq have come under regular attack by Iranian-backed armed groups.
We do not
since the
support
start
Trump
of the
here,
Iran war.
or Netanyahu.
Egypt has increased electricity prices in response to fuel shortages caused by closure of the Strait of Hormuz. The Electricity Ministry is imposing additional charges for higher-use households and businesses. In March, the country rolled out a program to ration electricity by reducing working hours and introducing remote work options for some government employees. The global fertilizer market is under pressure as exports from the Gulf are disrupted, affecting the global food supply. From Lagos, Ahmed Idris reports on why farmers are struggling to access fertilizer despite Nigeria's production capacity.
At 3 million tons per annum, this fertilizer plant is one of the world's largest. Yet for the Nigerian farmer, the cruel irony is it is made here, but still not affordable.
We are not supposed to be paying more because we are closer to the place of the production of the fertilizer compared to those outside. So we should benefit more, but opposite is the case.
Nigeria has the gas, the fertilizer plants, and the soil. But if global demand for fertilizer determines the price, then these farmers
Just like oil, fertilizer is a global product.
Buyers from across the globe for fertilizer. And if the cost of a bag is tied to a war, then the real casualty will be the yield of the next harvest. As Gulf exports slow down, buyers from Europe, the United States, Brazil, and India are knocking on Nigeria's door. The Dangote Group is now in a strategic global pivot, less exposed to the Strait of Hormuz choke point.
It's a huge demand, and countries are actually worried about the impacts of the lack of fertilizer in their respective countries. It's much, much more serious than the petroleum product shortage.
But for the local farmer, this global demand creates a domestic squeeze. While Nigeria has the gas, global
Helium's a
LNG
huge
price
problem
volatility
too.
and local logistical
Helium
constraints
shortage is
mean
killing my
the home
portfolio.
field advantage hasn't reached the local farmer yet.
Ridiculous.
Analysts point to another dynamic to fertilizer affordability.
Trump's just got to end this shit.
It is possible that both Dangote and Durham
Hello, Easy.
how their products are being bought and smuggled out of the country. We should see a corresponding increase in the output of farms, and therefore prices of goods should decline. We haven't seen that yet. As the planting season begins, the choice for many is stark: reduce fertilizer use and risk a poor harvest, or pay the high price of a war thousands of kilometers away. Nigeria has the capacity to
Yeah, I saw that, Ryan.
this crisis.
White
For
House
its own
is denying
farmers,
it.
The victory remains out of reach for now, unless the government
I don't
finds a
know.
way to supply cheap gas to local
They
plants
called a
like
lid at
Dangote
like 1, 2 o'clock this afternoon.
cost of fertilizer. Ahmed Idris,
You didn't go to Mar-a-Lago this weekend,
Israel's
which led to all
military
sorts of
offensive on
rumors,
Lebanon is overshadowing the Easter holiday for Christians.
mostly about him
Among them are
starting
residents of
something.
the southern village of
But
Alma al-Shab, seen here taking shelter a month
we'll
ago.
see.
Many have been forced to leave their homes. The mostly Christian community lies just 1 kilometer from the Israeli border and has been the target of frequent attacks. Shadi Naif Saya is the mayor of Alma al-Shab. He says evacuations have been incredibly difficult, but people hope they will soon be able to return.
What we are witnessing today is on another level. A large part and our homes has been evacuated, and daily life became impossible. Families were forced to leave not because they wanted to, but because staying meant risking their lives. Today, many of us, including myself, are in Beirut, displaced from our own land. We didn't come here by choice. We came because we had no other options. What's happening is not evacuation of our homes. It's disruption of an entire community. Our people are scattered, living in uncertainty.
That's true too.
Depending on the, you see, it's a
He has
big
such
difference
thin
between
skin.
you living in your
Him not
house
getting the
and
Peace
being
Prize
displaced
after
to
begging for
a
it,
very small
publicly
houses.
begging
You don't
for
know
it
what's
on the
next.
international
It would
stage
mean
over and
losing
over
not
again.
just land,
And he still didn't get it.
identity, history, and belonging.
It's hilarious.
Our towns and villages are not just places on a map. They are where our families lived for generations, where our churches stand, where our memories are rooted. Any form of permanent control would mean cutting us off from our homes and from our future. We're not asking for anything extraordinary, only the right to live in our land in peace with dignity again. We want to return, we will return. And no matter how long it takes, our connection to our land cannot be erased.
Yeah, well, Bibi's going to erase it for you. So, what do you think about that?
Well, let's take a look at some of the day's other news now. An Israeli airstrike has killed at least 1 Palestinian in Gaza. The attack hit a civilian vehicle near the Al-Maghazi refugee camp.
Why?
Several others were injured. Israel has attacked
Why?
Gaza nearly every day, despite a ceasefire that was agreed to last October.
Why?
More than 700 Palestinians have been killed since then.
Why?
Around 20 French boats have left the port of Marseille to join an international aid flotilla that aims to break Israel's blockade of Gaza. The boats are heading to Spain, where they will set off with 80 other vessels that hope to deliver humanitarian supplies. Last year, the Israeli Navy arrested hundreds of activists on board another flotilla heading to Gaza.
Of course they did.
The crew were deported to their home countries.
It's a
In
mobile
Gaza,
library.
many families don't have
Yeah,
shelter or safety.
probably.
They're surrounded by sewage water, rubbish, and debris. That's putting children at risk of disease and even attacks by rodents. Tariq Abu Azoum reports from Gaza
I
City.
agree, Ryan. All avoidable.
In Gaza, tents are a thin divider between a family and the dangers outside. But in these displacement camps,
Can you
even that
imagine
protection's
living
collapsing.
like this? Look at
Between
this.
debris and streams of sewage water, families are now confronting another threat. Yasmin Rehan is raising 7 children. She says
agree,
the tent
Twisted.
is so flimsy, it does not offer much protection, and that a young daughter has been attacked by rodents inside it. Now the child's skin shows the signs of that, red spots and inflammation across her body as
Jesus
her mother tries
Christ.
to soothe her wounds. She says they are not from a single night. but from the conditions they live in every day.
Thank you, Twisted.
Rodents and rats live among the sewage surrounding us.
You too.
We recently received a new tent, but almost every day I discover new holes in its fabric caused by rats. We find rat droppings in our food, in our flour, and even in our children's clothes.
These camps have become fertile grounds for disease and infestation. Rubbish piles beside shelters, dirty water in the pathways between tents, children sleeping inches from the ground.
But we're spending
Just weeks after
tens of billions of dollars to build concentration camps here in the United States to house immigrants just because they speak a different language and they're a different color. While this is happening.
Adam was left with wounds and scars.
We were asleep at night when my son suddenly cried out
fuck?
loudly. I woke up to see what had happened, but the tent was completely dark. I used the light on my phone to check on him, and I found his face covered in blood. My husband then found the rat right next to him.
Doctors warn conditions in Gaza's tent camps are fueling a wider public health crisis, especially among children whose immune systems are already weakened by malnutrition and poor conditions.
During just the last
Yep.
week,
Musk,
we record about
Doge,
2 cases
douche.
in this hospital for children. One of them neonate.
And they do build
where,
gulags.
A big mouse ate part of his face. And after that, we have 2 cases attacked also by mice. So this is the effect of the war.
Months after being displaced, conditions have not improved, even after a ceasefire took effect in October. The loss of home was only the beginning, but for many families in Gaza, even shelter has become another source of fear, especially for children sleeping inside spaces no longer able to keep danger out. Tariq Abu Azzoum, Al Jazeera, Gaza City, Palestine.
At least 12 people are now known to have died in an earthquake that struck northeastern Afghanistan. A building collapsed during the 5.8 magnitude quake on Friday. 8 members of the same family were killed. They were refugees who were recently forced to leave Iran. A 2-year-old child was the only survivor. 5 other houses were completely destroyed. In the past 10 days, another 77 people have died in Afghanistan in floods and landslides. Nearly 800 homes have been destroyed. More rain has been forecast for the coming days. At least 5 people have died after a fire broke out at a gas lighter factory in Bangladesh's capital, Dhaka. It took several hours to bring the blaze under control. The cause is being investigated. 47 migrants have been rescued off the coast of Gran Canaria. A group of 44 men and 3 women were found just over 43 kilometers south of the Spanish island aboard a canoe. 1 person was taken to hospital. More than 6,000 migrants have arrived to Spain in the first 3 months of this year. Under pressure from Donald Trump, Mexico and the U.S. have updated an 80-year-old water treaty. It now guarantees water supplies from Mexico to the southern U.S. The U.S. government says it will help American farmers, but Mexican farmers say they've been left behind. John Holman has more on the story from northern Mexico.
Water, the great shared commodity along the Mexico-US border.
The 2 countries have long been wrangling over rivers that start in one nation and end in another. But now, after threats of tariffs from Donald Trump, the US and Mexico have reached a new deal.
Common denominator everywhere around the world.
In which the US supplies Mexico with water from the Colorado River in the west, and in return, Mexico supplies the US with about a third of that amount from its rivers in the east, but over a 5-year period rather than in a fixed annual amount.
Now that will change. Instead of the 5-year quota, Mexico will send the same amount to the United States, but in fixed annual deliveries, more than 400 million cubic meters of water every year.
Farmers on both sides of the border say that tweak makes a huge difference. In drought-ridden Chihuahua, North Mexico, Hector Gandara says there's already not enough water to go around.
It's been several years now without rain. We've never experienced a drought like the one we are suffering now. This year we haven't planted anything here because the river no longer has any water.
He's talking about radical action if Mexico opens its dams to give to the US.
we can get up to 75% of our crop average back.
But downriver in Texas, farmers are struggling hard too.
Sitting under 50% of my farm able to even farm. We have to rely right now on rainfall moisture to be able to plant and get our crops up and growing.
Especially because Mexico's already defaulted on its water payment multiple times. Brian Jones is sceptical, whatever the agreement, that they'll provide this time. But a more consistent supply could keep him in business.
If we can get that water behind the dams and those international reservoirs, hopefully we can get up to 75, 80% of our crop acreage back planted and growing.
The big picture, water experts tell us, is that with a long-term trend of more droughts, eventually there could be not enough for either side. John Holman, Al Jazeera, Chihuahua, Mexico.
Peter Glick is co-founder and senior fellow at the Pacific Institute, a global water think tank, and he joins us now from Berkeley, California. Peter, thanks for being with us here on Al Jazeera. The updated agreement replaces the 5-year quota system with annual deliveries instead. From your perspective, is this an improvement?
So there are many rivers around the world that are shared by 2 or more nations. Most of them don't have any agreements at all. In the U.S. and Mexico, we share a treaty on the Colorado River and the Rio Grande that allocates water among the 2 nations. But both of those allocations have come under enormous stress in recent years because of growing drought. As the story just described, the treaty originally allocated water to be delivered on average every 5 years. And that permitted during severe droughts, a single year could be missed and they could make it up later. But there have been such severe droughts that that treaty is now under enormous stress. And the new agreement has deliveries required every year. That could be an advantage if the water is available every year. But the problem now is if the water is not available in any single year, and because of climate change, that's increasingly a risk, then water won't be delivered at all.
Peter, can you just explain to our viewers a bit more about why Mexico struggles to meet its targets?
So
I hear you,
Mexico
Twisted.
is having trouble meeting its deliveries because there simply hasn't been enough water in the rivers because of drought and because of droughts that are increasingly worsened by human-caused climate change. The treaty was signed 80 years ago when climate change wasn't a factor, and the assumption about how much water would be available is no longer valid. And so now Mexico is increasingly finding it difficult to deliver the agreed upon amount of water because of drought.
Peter, does the updated treaty address long-term climate issues, and does it account in the right way for drought?
It does not change the treaty. It does not address the growing risks of climate change. When the water had to be delivered over 5 years, a single year could be missed, and then that allocation could be made up in a subsequent year. The problem is Mexico has not been able to even meet its deliveries under this 5-year agreement. Now, with the agreement being Mexico having to deliver water every year, we're going to have to see whether there are going to be years when, single years, when Mexico is not able to deliver their allocations. And I think that's increasingly likely, and it's going to contribute to ongoing political disputes between the 2 countries.
And Peter, you mentioned political disputes. I wanted to ask you, I mean, what kind of political pressure is being exerted from the American side when it comes to all this?
So part of the reason why there's this new agreement to try and deliver water, at least some water every year, is precisely because it's become a serious political issue. Texas is a very conservative state. They're very well connected with President Donald Trump.
I agree, Ryan.
They encouraged Donald Trump to raise this to a political issue with the president of Mexico and to demand that changes be made, that Mexico deliver more water than they've been able to deliver in the past. That's part of the reason why there's a new agreement. It's not clear that this new agreement will actually solve the political problems. If Mexico is unable to deliver the water, this causes political problems in Mexico with farmers. We've already seen violence in Mexico where farmers have objected to.
I hear that every
water
election
to the United
season,
States
Ryan.
when farmers
I don't
in
know.
Mexico weren't
It
getting any
happens
water
great.
themselves.
but
And I think that
I
kind
don't
of
believe it.
political
I'll believe it
conflict
when I
is
see
going to
it.
continue.
All right. Peter Glick, co-founder and senior fellow at the Pacific Institute. Thanks so much for joining us here on Al Jazeera. We appreciate it.
Oh.
Iraq's footballers have returned home to celebrations after they qualified for the FIFA World Cup for the first time in 4 decades. Thousands lined the streets in Baghdad as an open-top bus carried the players through. Iraq became the 48th and final team to qualify for the global event after they beat Bolivia on Tuesday. It's brought some welcome relief to many residents in the capital who have endured a series of missile and drone strikes in recent weeks.
Today I am very happy, just like the rest of the 46 million Iraqis inside and outside Iraq. This team is the only source of our joy. We have nothing else to be happy for but this team. This team gave us the feeling that it represents all ethnicities in Iraq. Bravo to this team, which has made us proud and happy in these difficult days, in these days of war.
I saw that, Ryan.
And missiles.
It was
Many
funny.
thanks to them.
NASA has released the first images taken by astronauts aboard the Orion capsule as it heads towards the moon. The 4 crew members have now passed the halfway point between Earth and the moon. They'll fly between 6,500 and 10,000 kilometers above the lunar surface, orbiting around the dark side of the moon before returning to Earth. It's the first time in more than 50 years that humans have left the Earth's orbit.
Yesterday, we were looking out the docking hatch, which is off the camera to the top side, and we were just starting to see the moon, and it just looked different. And we were catching glimpses of the far side, the side that you can never see from Earth, of Grimaldi, of Oriental. We were just starting to see around Grimaldi into that far. And as 4 humans who have looked at the moon our entire lives, it just looked different out the window, and that is wild. It just really put our place in the universe in perspective.
Oh, we're going to take a short break now, but the news continues at the top of the hour.
All right, guys, that's it for tonight. Thank you all so much for coming. Thank you all for subscribing. I appreciate it. Helps the channel immensely. Thank you, thank you. And I'll be back Monday afternoon-ish, 1 o'clock, I think. Yeah, unless something happens tomorrow, like Trump nukes the planet or something, I'm out. So, Ryan, thank you. Twisted, everybody. Where's NPC in there somewhere? Thank you, everybody, for coming along and chatting. And see you next week, maybe. Tune in. All right, later. Bye.